Chapter 178. Since the Western Defense Zone Coalition forces garrison Sequoia Island. It's like running out of money. If it wasn't for Zhou Mingho, the commander of the Guang'an Prefecture's coalition forces, in order to win over Qin Daoxian, and the Qin family actually provided strong logistical support for the front line of the East Defense Zone. In other words, other people dared to embezzle the military expenditure of the Western Defense Zone so arbitrarily. It has long been captured by the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces for corruption and dereliction of duty. Since the garrison of Sequoia Island in the West Defense Zone, not only has a third-order spiritual vein been built, but also more than a dozen second-order spiritual veins have been built on a dozen nearby islands with Sequoia Island as the core, imitating the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture Xianmeng. The pulses are used for loose cultivators and other small families, and is responsible for the patrolling and stopping of the Lingshu battleship. The cost of constructing the spiritual veins alone is as high as more than 20 million spiritual stones. And the huge order for magical instruments from the Qin family cost millions of spirit stones. Afterwards, the construction of Guanhai Xiancheng cost a lot of the military expenditure of the Western Defense Zone, and nearly 50 million spirit stones were spent. Arguably, the Guanhai Xiancheng built with this money should be owned by the Western Defense Zone Coalition Army, but anyone with a discerning eye can see it. However, the Qin family assigned its taxation rights to the name of their own family. This is the blatant private use of military spending. Private use of military expenses is not enough. The point is that after spending like this, there is not much left of the original 80 million spirit stone military expenses. Don't talk about doing other things, even paying the soldiers' salaries is a little powerless. Inside the main hall of the headquarters of the West Defense District, Qin Daoxian looked at Lei Zhen, who was standing in front of him with a nervous face, and said with a smile, "Why are you so nervous? My Qin family is on Shuanghu Island, a few hundred miles away from Sequoia Island. Are you still worried that my Qin family can't escape?" He shook his head. "Don't worry, this month's military pay, I will pay it out truthfully." After finishing speaking, he waved towards Lei Zhen. When Lei Zhen heard the words, he glanced at his immediate boss with a slight hesitation, and then he cupped his hands and slowly exited the hall. Watching Lei Zhen leave the hall, Qin Daoxian murmured, "After all, Daochuan should be back soon." Young Patriarch. A spirit void battleship descended from the sky. Qin Daochu flew down from the spirit void battleship and immediately bowed his hands when he saw Qin Daoxian. Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Daochuan, who had grown into a grown-up appearance, and couldn't help feeling filled with emotion. At the age of 14, Qin Daochuan was taken by Qin Xianhe to the Feijian shop in Guang'an Prefecture to exercise, and then he took over the business of magic tools in Sangxiafang City in Guang'an Prefecture. By now, Qin Daochuan is already 20 years old. It can be said that Qin Daoxian watched him grow up in front of him little by little. At this moment, seeing the beard growing at the corner of his mouth, he couldn't help feeling emotional. The cultivator of the Qin family's Daoist generation has finally grown up. Not only that, Qin Daochuan also has Zhongling roots, and under the constant cultivation of the Qin family over the years, he has finally reached the 9th level of qi refining. At this rate, it can be as fast as 2 or 3 years, and as slow as 10 years. Qin Daochuan can successfully establish a foundation at the age of 30 at the latest and become a foundation-building cultivator. Patting Qin Daochuan's shoulder heavily, Qin Daoxian said with emotion, "It's hard work." Qin Daochuan looked at Qin Daoxian and shook his head with a silent smile. "Come on, let's go in and talk." "Yes, young patriarch." Qin Daochuan cupped his hands and followed Qin Daoxian into the hall. The two sat in separate positions, and Qin Daoxian personally brewed a pot of spiritual tea for him, and the two drank and chatted. About half an hour. Qin Daochuan finally understood why Qin Daoxian transferred him back to Guanhai City Xiancheng. Compared with the magic instrument market in Sangxiafang City in Xiancheng, Guang'an Prefecture, what the Qin family did in Guanhai Xiancheng was really related to the foundation of the Qin family's future. But what about the Feijian shop in Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture? Qin Daochuan frowned and looked at Qin Daoxian. Over the years, The Hongyin Feijian store in Sengxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture, has long been more than 2 stores. According to Chen Daochuan, the Chen family now has a total of 6 stores in Sengxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture. It completely covers the major blocks of the entire Sengxiafang City. The types of flying swords in the Hongyin Feijian store have also changed a lot from the beginning. In the past, the Hongyin Feijian store almost only sold the Red Shadow Feijian, a first-order low-grade Feijian. But now, the Hongyin Feijia store not only sells first-order low-grade flying swords, but also the types of first-order low-grade flying swords are no longer limited to the Red Shadow flying sword. Moreover, there are also first-order mid-grade and even first-grade high-grade flying swords for sale. Of course, there are very few people who can afford a first-order high-grade flying sword in the Qi refining period. In addition, even if they had 500 spirit stones in their pockets, they mostly wanted to rent a better cave or buy spirit pills. Instead of choosing to change the magic weapon from the first-order low-grade or the first-grade middle-grade to the first-grade high-grade. This is too extravagant for a loose cultivator in the Qi refining period. Indulge for a moment. Chen Daoxian raised his head and said, "Now, who is in charge of the Feijian shop in Sengxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture, besides you?" "Senior Wei Sihai Wei." "It's him." Chen Daoxian nodded. He still remembered the stall owner he met when he first went to the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion. The last time he was in the Hongyin Feijian shop, he also met each other. Unexpectedly, he has now become the second in command of the Hongyin Feijian shop in Sengxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture. But it's normal to think about it. When Wei Sihai joined the Hongyin Feijian store. The Hongyin Feijian store opened its first branch not long ago, and there were only 2 people in the store, Chen Xianhe and Chen Daochuan. Now the Chen family has opened 6 branches in Guang'an Prefecture. Of course, the status has risen, and it has become a veteran. Chen Daoxian nodded. "In your opinion, how does Wei Sihai behave, herd?" Chen Daochuan's heart froze slightly, and he tasted the connotation of Chen Daochuan's words. Chen Daoxian wanted a Wei Sihai to take over the Chen family's business of instruments in Sengxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture. Senior Wei is calm and low-key, more credible, but Chen Daochuan expressed his concerns. To be frank, this kind of behavior of completely letting outsiders take over the family business is very rare in the entire Wanxinghai. Because family monks generally cannot lack manpower, they may hire outsiders to help them, but they will never leave the entire business in a fairy city to outsiders. What if Wei Sihai ran away with the money? What if he tried to raise the price of flying swords and corrupt them? There will be many problems here. But compared to these small problems, Chen Daoxian saw further. Here Chen Daochuan's concerns. He explained, "The Hongyin Feijian store was indeed the mainstay of my Chen family's income, but now, it is no longer. Whether it's the medicine business between us and the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces, or the magic weapon business, it far exceeds the turnover of the Hongyin Feijian store." Chen Daoxian paused. "Besides, the most important foundation of my Chen family now is Guanhai Xiancheng. Only when this Xiancheng is managed well can my Chen family truly possess the heritage of a big family. Compared with doing business in someone else's fairy city, how can there be a lot to gain from operating a fairy city exclusively by yourself? As long as the Chen family makes the operation of Guanhai Xiancheng prosperous, they don't say anything. The taxation of this Xiancheng is enough to make the Chen family fat. Why is the Zhou family so rich? It is not only the various industries of the Zhou family, but more importantly, they owned a huge immortal city that was among the best in the entire Zhangzhou before that, the immortal city of Guang'an. The Guang'an Immortal Alliance built the Lingde Immortal City, and it was the Yang family and other Guang'an families who saw that the largest part of Guang'an's interests was monopolized by the Zhou family, and they were unwilling to form this alliance. Since Guang'an Xianmeng can do this, why can't his Chen family do it? If there is no corpse tied on Lotus Island, Chen Daoxian really dare not make this decision so quickly. But now that the corpse tide broke out on Lotus Island, in order to ensure the internal stability of Guang'an Mansion, the Zhou family agreed to compromise and sell some of their interests to the outside world. The so-called division of the 5 defense zones is not as good as the division of Guang'an Prefecture's interests. The West Defense Area of Guang'an Prefecture will be the sphere of influence of the Qin family in the future. His Qin family built a new immortal city on their own site, why not? Of course, building an immortal city is one thing, and whether it can be developed or not is another. The Lingde Immortal City started well, and that was also Yang Lingyuan's pioneering approach to surrounding this immortal city, opening up spiritual fields and planting spiritual veins for scattered cultivators to build. But soon, this move was imitated by the Zhou family. Now it is imitated by Qin Daoxian. In this regard, his Qin family does not have any advantages at all, but because of latecomers, they are behind others. Moreover, because of the construction of Guanhai Xiancheng, the Qin family encountered the same predicament as the Guang'an Xianmeng, and lacked liquidity. That is, the problem of insufficient spiritual stones. You must know that he has not vigorously supported the scattered cultivators to open up spiritual fields and plant spiritual medicines on the more than 10 second-order spiritual veins opened up by his Qin family. If so, he needs to prepare a larger amount of spiritual stones for circulation. Just do it. Letting Daoist Wei to manage my Qin family's flying sword industry in Sengxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture, will be an attempt on the road of my Qin family's future development. My Qin family is still young in the Fu character generation, and there are not enough Taoist cultivators. Only by boldly using outsiders can it be in line with the rapid development of my Qin family. Qin Daoxian analyzed slowly, as for the problems of fleeing with money and corruption that you are worried about, as long as an incentive compensation system and a strict financial management system are established, this situation can be avoided. Of course, we always know people who are not aware of people and misunderstand, but this loss is completely within the acceptable range for my Qin family. Even, our Qin family can promise that in the future, for these active monks who have served my Qin family for a certain number of years, my Qin family can help him open up a new immortal family as a way of my Qin family's vassal family. Hearing this, Qin Daochuan's eyes lit up. If you talk about what the biggest wish of a loose cultivator is, the first one must be attaining the Tao and becoming an immortal. Only. Whether it's a sect family cultivator or a loose cultivator, they all know in their hearts that no one in this world has ascended to the upper world for hundreds of thousands of years. The saying of becoming an immortal has almost become a phantom legend. At least for loose cultivators, it is an untouchable dream. And helping them create a cultivating family, becoming the ancestor of the family, watching their descendants spread, this can be said to be the most tempting thing for a loose cultivator who has no hope of immortality. But unfortunately, most of the loose cultivators do not have this opportunity and capital. To create a family of cultivating immortals, even the weakest Chi-refining family, a wealthy partner and a lawful land, are indispensable. How can an ordinary loose cultivator have so much savings? Loose cultivators who can open up a family of cultivators, without exception, are local tyrants in the cultivators. Now the big clan in Guang'an Prefecture like the Qin family is willing to help the loose cultivator to open up a cultivator family, and even willing to accept their family as a younger brother, this is a great good thing for the loose cultivator. It works. It works. Qin Daochuan's eyes lit up, and he kept nodding. If it is conditional on helping the loose cultivator to open up the immortal family in the future, I believe that no loose cultivator can refuse this temptation, and will definitely do his best to serve my Qin family. Chapter 179. Finish talking about the magic weapon shop in Sengxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture. Qin Daoxian turned back to the topic again. He instructed, Daochuan, the currency that our Qin family is going to issue in Guanhai Xiancheng has far-reaching significance, and we must not take a wrong step, otherwise, for my Qin family, it will be doomed. I heard Qin Daoxian take the matter so seriously. Qin Daochuan nodded solemnly and said, Young patriarch, you can rest assured that I will take good care of the Chongping Central Bank you mentioned, and there will be no accidents. Despite Qin Daochuan's assurance, Qin Daoxian knew in his heart that Qin Daochuan knew nothing about the bank's operating mechanism, and he had to be on the sidelines at all times. In fact, Qin Daoxian was deeply touched when he used spirit stones back then, and it was really inconvenient to use spirit stones as currency. Fortunately, the loose cultivator still has a storage bag, and the loose cultivator is shy in his pocket. Usually, he does not have many spiritual stones in his body. But many family monks probably have this kind of painful experience. For example, the 80 million spirit stones allocated by the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces to the Western Defense Region Allied Forces use 10 Spirit Void battleships to transport them. 80 million spiritual stones, if piled on the ground, would be as high as a hill. There is no storage bag in the world that can hold so many spirit stones. In fact, from that time on, Chen Daoxian had the idea of replacing the spirit stone with a currency. It's just that the Chen family was weak at that time. The sphere of influence is limited to the land of Shuanghu Island, and there are only 11 cultivators in the clan. If you want to talk about the use of spirit stone coins to replace spirit stones for trading and circulation, let alone outsiders laughing, the cultivator of the Chen family probably wanted to laugh when he heard it. Chen Daoxian knows that the issuance of a currency is definitely not a simple matter. First, the currency has to be collateralized. In the past, the issuance of currency was initially based on gold as collateral, that is, the gold standard system. This system is divided into 3 stages, or 3 forms: gold coin, gold bullion standard, and gold exchange standard. Even the US dollar, the world currency in the previous life, was the gold standard used for a long time. But later, with the continuous development of productive forces and materials, the gold standard monetary system has been unable to adapt to the rapid development of productive forces. The performance is that there are too many products being produced and too little gold to issue enough money. If a huge amount of excess currency is issued, in order to adapt to the development of productivity. But in this way, it will inevitably face the risk of gold acceptance. That is, a bunch of people holding money and wanting to accept gold will find that there is no gold to accept. This is undoubtedly an extremely dangerous thing, which will cause a devastating blow to the credit of the currency. The development of society to this stage also means that the gold standard monetary system gradually declines. In modern society, the issuance of currency is no longer collateralized by some kind of physical object, but has become a collateral of nothingness, that is, national credit. Of course, if the Chen family uses the family credit as collateral to issue a currency, it is estimated that they will be spat on by colleagues in Guang'an. Chen Daoxian still has this point. Since credit cannot be used as the collateral for currency issuance, the only choice is to use the spirit stone itself, which everyone agrees with, as the acceptance. Even so, in order for the loose cultivators and family cultivators in Guanhai Xiancheng to accept such a currency, Chen Daoxian had to make adequate preparations. Except for currency acceptances. Another difficulty is the currency itself. In the past, most countries issue paper currency. According to the different anti-counterfeiting measures of each country, the quality of the currency produced is also different. Some currencies have excellent anti-counterfeiting measures and are difficult to counterfeit. And some currencies, just call a printing and dyeing factory, can do better. The currency issued by the Chen family must have the characteristics of being difficult to counterfeit and easy to issue. This is not a simple matter. In other words, these two requirements are somewhat contradictory. Difficult to counterfeit means that the currency is difficult to counterfeit and easy to issue, which means that the production speed is fast. To solve this contradiction, we must have superb coinage technology. And this problem. It was the first task that Chen Daoxian handed over to the Institute of Magical Instruments established by Chen Daochu. Twin Lakes Island. A ray of light crossed the sky and landed in the spiritual veins of Shuanghu Island. In front of you. A unique building appeared in front of Zakhen Daochuan. On the plaque of the building, the characters Chongping Dharma Instrument Research Institute are written. Chen Daochuan and the others are basically immune to the endless new names of the young patriarch. Or not immune. But the education Chen Daochu and Chen Daochuan received since they were children is the Enlightenment education Chen Daoxian gave them. These new terms, they have been exposed to since childhood. On the contrary, when I grew up and saw those completely different names in the outside world, I felt a little weird. At this point, This is especially true of the people of the Fu family who have received this kind of education since childhood. To some extent, their vision is closer to that of Chen Daoxuan's children in previous lives. That's it. Chen Daoxian smiled at Chen Daochuan. Let's go. Young patriarch, please. Chen Daochuan made a please gesture. Chen Daoxian nodded, raised his legs and walked towards the interior of the Magical Instrument Research Institute, followed by Chen Daochuan. The exterior construction style of Chongping Dharma Instrument Research Institute is quite ancient. It is very similar in structure to the traditional Xianjia Palace in Wanxinghai, but the interior is completely different. It was divided into small laboratories by Chen Daochu. That's right, it's the kind of laboratory that Chen Daoxian built in Qitong Mountain back then. Only, the laboratory of the Chongping Institute of Magical Instruments is almost empty. Come to think of it, at the age of Chen Jiafa's cultivator and his level of refining, he still does not have the ability to run a laboratory by himself. Even though their crafting talent was blessed by Chen Daoxuan's preaching. Nowadays, in addition to Chen Daoxian, Chen Daochu is the only one in the Chen family. With the blessing of Chen Daoxuan's preaching, he barely has the understanding and ability to create a new type of magic weapon. Good boy, well done. As soon as he walked into the laboratory, Chen Daoxian heard Chen Daochu's excited praise. What's the matter, why are you so happy? Young patriarch? Hearing this voice, Chen Daochu turned his head and saw Chen Daoxian and Chen Daochuan walking in one after the other. Daochuan, when did you come back? Seeing Chen Daochuan, Chen Daochu, who grew up with him since childhood, said excitedly. I was just transferred back to Guanhai Xiancheng by the young patriarch today. Great! Hearing the two reminiscing about the past, Chen Daoxian interrupted with a smile. Okay, let's talk about the reminiscence later. How is the research on the task I gave you? It's been almost half a year. Successful, successful. Hearing Chen Daoxian mentioning the task, Chen Daochu was all excited. Chapter 180. Young patriarch, please take a look. Chen Daochu presented a treasure like a treasure, and took out a banknote that was very similar to his previous life. But look carefully. This paper currency is very different from the previous paper currency. The first is the difference in material. Chen Daoxian took the banknotes handed by Chen Daochu, and flicked it gently with his hand, making a rushing sound. This is paper. Chen Daoxian looked at each other in surprise. Yes, but not quite. Chen Daochu paused. To be precise, this is a special talisman paper we developed. Of course Chen Daoxian knew what a talisman was. The so-called talisman paper is to grind the rhizomes of lingzhi into pulp, and finally dehydrate the pulp, and then go through a series of processes to make it into the appearance of paper. Compared with the paper made by mortals, the talisman paper also changed the raw material from trees to spiritual plants. In the rest of the process, there is little difference between the two. However, because of the change in raw materials, the talisman paper is extremely tough, far less fragile than ordinary paper. Chen Daoxian took the talisman paper handed over by Chen Daochu, and then pressed lightly with his hand, but it did not tear it apart. See here. Chen Daoxian couldn't help showing a smile, and said, it's interesting. However, this alone is far from meeting my requirements. Of course I don't know that. Chen Daochu smiled mysteriously, and then he brought a very strange magic weapon and said, this is the key magic weapon to test this kind of paper money. This is. He looked at the square magic tool that Chen Daochu handed over. At the bottom of the magic tool, there was a glazed platform. Chen Daochu stretched out his hand and said, young patriarch, please borrow the paper money heard. Chen Daoxian handed over the banknotes in his hand. Chen Daochu put the banknotes on the stage made of lioli. Next second, a strange lotus-shaped pattern appeared on the banknote. This. Chen Daoxian looked at the scene in front of him and felt very miraculous. At this moment, he did not feel any fluctuations in spiritual energy and infuriating energy, but there was a lotus flower-shaped pattern on the banknote, and it was shimmering with light. It's like the fluorescence emitted by the banknotes in the previous life under the money detector. Chen Daochu immediately took the banknotes away from the square instrument, and immediately returned to its original appearance. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but be very curious and said, "How did you do it?" Material and pattern. Chen Daochu stretched out 2 fingers, then pointed at a 7 or 8-year-old boy in the crowd, and said, "It's him who found this material." Oh? Hearing this, Chen Daoxian looked at a rather silent 7 or 8-year-old child in the crowd, recalled it carefully, and said, "Your name is Chen Fulai, right?" "Right." Chen Fulai nodded. Chen Daoxian also taught the first batch of monks who entered the school. With the cultivator's memory, it is not surprising to recognize Chen Fulai. "How did you discover this material?" Chen Daoxian asked. "I discovered this new type of talisman paper by accident when I taught myself the inheritance of family talismans, but after I made this talisman paper, I couldn't make it into a magic talisman at all, so I didn't care. Later, I was selected by Mr. Daochu to enter the Chongping Institute of Magical Instruments. We studied this new type of banknotes proposed by you, the patriarch, but we could not find suitable paper. So I came up with this new type of talisman paper that I stumbled upon. I wanted to try it out, and it turned out to be a real success." Chen Daochu on the side sighed with emotion. "Speaking of which, we are also lucky. Although this kind of talisman paper cannot be used to make magic talismans, it can inscribe a very special pattern. After the array pattern is melted into the talisman paper, and then tested by the money detector we developed, it will emit a lotus-shaped fluorescence, just like what you just saw, young patriarch." "You mean this talisman paper has a pattern on it? Isn't it a magic weapon?" Chen Daoxian frowned. The banknotes he needed were easy to make, but had a high enough anti-counterfeiting threshold. Right now, this kind of anti-counterfeiting threshold is high enough, but it is not easy to make. Incorporating the array pattern means that this inconspicuous banknote is a magic weapon. Without a specific refining method, who can imitate it? Young patriarch, listen to me. Although this paper currency is a special magic weapon, because the pattern is simple, as long as the cultivator in the qi refining stage is proficient in mastering it, it can be engraved in an instant. Right. Yes, very simple. Hear the chorus of the crowd. Chen Daoxian said non-committally, "How simple is it?" Heard. Chen Daochu hurriedly handed over a jade slip. Chen Daoxian took the jade slip and sank his consciousness into it. Next second, with a strange expression on his face, he pulled out his divine sense from the inside of the jade slip. This array pattern is indeed simple enough, or, if Chen Daochu didn't say that it was an array pattern, he even doubted that there was such a simple array in the world. But no matter how simple the formation pattern is, once the formation is integrated into the tool, no matter how high the cultivator is, it is impossible to see what the formation pattern looks like. Otherwise, wouldn't the family cultivator be able to reversely introduce the refining method of high-level spirit armor by purchasing high-level spirit armor? This is obviously impossible. At the speed of 12 people in our research institute, we can make this semi-finished banknote into a finished product. About 1 cup of tea can make 100 pieces. 1 cup of tea makes 100 pieces. If it is refined for 5 hours a day, that is 6,000 banknotes, and the denomination of 1 banknote is 100 spirit stone coins, which is 600,000 spirit stone coins. 1 month is 18 million spirit stone coins. If you increase the number of people, this speed will be even faster. Based on the current circulation demand of Guanhai Xiancheng, about 30 million spirit stone coins are needed, which is enough to maintain the normal operation of the entire Guanhai Xiancheng. Of course, the denomination of spirit stone coins cannot be only 100. In fact, Chen Daoxian divided the denominations of Lingshire coins into 13 types in total according to his previous life experience. There are 13 points, 2 points, 5 points, 1 corner, 2 corners, 5 corners, 1 yuan, 2 yuan, 5 yuan, 10 yuan, 20 yuan, 50 yuan, and 100 yuan. Some people may wonder. 1 cent, that is, 1% of the spirit stone coins, can you still buy things? Actually, The purchasing power of Lingshire is very strong. The reason why I felt that Lingshire couldn't help but spend it was because the things that Qin Daoxian usually bought were very precious treasures for monks. If you use spirit stones to buy bulk materials used by ordinary people, one spirit stone can buy a lot of things. Then, he only spent one spirit stone when he bought a young and beautiful slave girl from Izumo. If you use spiritual stones to buy food for ordinary people, you don't know how much you need to buy a single spiritual stone. Therefore, there is no problem in calculating the denomination of spirit stones with the minimum unit of points. Because even if it is a loose cultivator, there will be many servants behind them to serve them, and these ordinary people need to consume resources to eat and drink. These resources, if they are large transactions, are purchased with spirit stones. It is possible that small transactions between mortals will also be settled in currencies such as gold, silver and copper, but large transactions between monks will not agree with these three metal currencies. In order to feed their tens of millions of people, the Zhou family has always relied on the food grown by slaves driven by the loose cultivators of Guang'an Prefecture. To buy these grains, the currency for settlement is Lingshire. It is impossible for the loose cultivators to grow food for the Zhou family for no reason. Metals like gold, silver and bronze are of no use to monks. Therefore, if a large number of these 13 currencies are refined, the time required may be doubled. It's just that Qin Daoxian can't wait, he has to send more people. At the end of this month, he will start implementing his currency replacement plan. Anyone who knows economics knows it. The development of currency is also divided into stages. From a geographical point of view, currency can be divided into pilot, regional and finally full popularization. From the perspective of the internationalization process, it can be divided into 4 stages. The first stage is the implementation of free convertibility of the balance of payments under the current account. In Qin Daoxian's previous life, the renminbi had just completed this stage. To put it simply, the spirit stone coins will be freely exchangeable in trade among the major forces in Guang'an Prefecture in the future. And this is the first step in the monetary process. If one day, the spirit stone coins issued by Qin Daoxian will completely replace the spirit stones and become the only currency in circulation in this world. That also means that he unified everything in the world of immortals. Whether it is economic, military, or cultural, it is possible to achieve this effect only after all have been unified. Now, what Qin Daoxian wants to do is to put money on a pilot basis in the simplest way for any sovereign government. That is, inside Guanhai Xiancheng, use spirit stone coins. Want to do this? Acceptance, currency security, force security, the major clan forces in the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture, and the cooperation of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone are all indispensable. Now it seems Qin Daoxian has solved 2 problems: acceptance and currency guarantee. Next, he also wants to let the major families in Guang'an Prefecture cooperate with him to implement this plan. But before that, he had to completely subdue the coalition army in the Western Defense Zone and turn this coalition army into his private army to some extent. Actually, Qin Daoxian had planned to carry out this plan as early as the beginning of the establishment of the Western Defense Zone coalition army. Because as long as you are interested, you will find out. There are very few family cultivators among the senior members of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone. Qin Daoxian's direct subordinates had a total of 10,000 chiefs, among whom there were only 2 family cultivators, Zhou Muqing of the Zhou family and Wei Lidao of the Wei family. The rest of the people are all foundation-building cultivators from loose cultivators. The reason why so many scattered cultivators were chosen to be the military commanders of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone. It is Qin Daoxian who wants to completely subdue this army and turn it into a private army of his Qin family. Although Qin Daoxian is now the commander of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, he relies on his own strength and potential. It's not how powerful the Qin family really is. Others do not say. There are very few available people in the Qin family. Except for the 10 monks of the Taoist generation, the monks of the Blessing generation have not grown up, and it is impossible to let them go out on their own. As Chen Daoxian said, for the rapid development of the Qin family, it is inevitable to use outsiders on a large scale. But it is also important to enable outsiders. That is to enable loose cultivators, and never enable family cultivators, because for a family cultivator, the most important thing is always his own family. In this regard, Chen Yuan Zhenzong and his Qin family are surprisingly similar to some extent. Chapter 181. Sequoia Island. View Heixinxing. The main hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in the Western Defense Zone. A flash of light flew towards the hall. The person who came was a middle-aged cultivator in armor. The cultivator was burly, and with this spirit armor, he didn't look like a cultivator, but a natural soldier. Push the door in. Lei Zhen saw in the hall a Taoist man wearing a blue Taoist robe, a jade crown on his head, and his hands behind his back. This person is his immediate boss, Chen Daoxian. Lei Zhen recruited soldiers in 957 of the Chen Yuan calendar, and served as a soldier in Yunmengwen on the front line of the Izumo kingdom. After 5 years, he retired and returned. Chen Daoxian turned around, looked at Lei Zhen who was standing towards him, and said with a smile, "General Lei, why did you stay on the front line of Izumo and choose to return to the backwater of Guang'an Prefecture?" Heard. Lei Zhen was silent. After a long time, he bowed his hands and said, "Your Majesty Commander, most of the garrison in Yunmengwen are from Jingzhou. I am at Sangzhou Cultivator. Came back." Chen Daoxian could hear that this should be Lei Zhen's heartfelt words. Since the fall of Jinan Pass, Sangzhou cultivators who went to serve on the front line could only go to Xianqing Xiongguan, where they were stationed in other states. And since the news of that Sangzhou cultivator losing Zhenangwen became public, other states have despised that Sangzhou cultivator. You can imagine the humiliation you receive when you become a soldier on someone else's territory. In addition, Lei Zhen's character is not very charming, and he is more likely to be excluded. Hear this. Chen Daoxian's mood was also a little heavy. The loss of Zhenangwen is the pain in the hearts of all the monks in Sangzhou, and this pain has not healed with the passage of time. On the contrary, due to the subsequent series of losses to Sangzhou cultivators' reputation and interests, it became more and more serious. He took a few steps forward, patted Lei Zhen on the shoulder, and said, "General Lei, rest assured, my Sangzhou cultivator will definitely take back the fairy city of Zhenangwen." Lei Zhen seemed to remember some bad memories, red eyes, and nodded. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little solemn, Chen Daoxian took Lei Zhen's hand, and after separating from his guest of honor, he said, "General Lei, don't talk about these unhappy things. Counting the days, it has been nearly a year since you came to our Western Defense Zone Coalition Army." Lei Zhen thought about it and said, 11 months and 7 days. General Lei has a good memory. Chen Daoxian smiled and said calmly, "Right now, the tide of corpses on Lianhua Island is low, and the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone will not always exist. I don't know what General Lei's plans will be in the future. Hear this." Lei Zhen opened his mouth, not knowing how to answer. Half an hour. He shook his head bitterly and said, "Maybe, go back to my island and instruct mortals to farm. Apart from cultivating, I don't know any methods of alchemy and alchemy. It seems that there is no other way out than to cultivate food for the big clan in exchange for a little spiritual stone." This time, Chen Daoxian was surprised. "Based on your cultivation, General Lei, isn't there any family in Guang'an that invited you to be a Keqing cultivator?" "Yes, of course there is," Lei Zhen nodded, and then smiled bitterly, "but Keqing just said it nicely, but in fact, he is just a lackey of the big family. Although I, Lei Zhen, are down and out, I am not enough to be a lackey of the big family." Heard. Chen Daoxian tapped the seat lightly, making a rattling sound. This Lei Zhen was simple and honest on the surface, but he was actually very shrewd. Before Chen Daoxian could say anything, Lei Zhen blocked his next words. Lei Zhen is not willing to be the lackey of the big family. How can he be willing to be the lackey of the Chen family? After all, although the Chen family was also recognized by the Guang'an family, but in terms of strength, there was still a gap between them and the family. Even now that Qin Daoxian has successfully converted the Chen Yuan sword classic, the power of the real yuan has soared by 70%, and he can vaguely touch the limit state real yuan mentioned in the Chen Yuan sword classic. On strength. If the current Qin Daoxian encounters the original Zifu zombie again, he will no longer be on a par with it. Maybe there is no 10,000 corpse bloody array to repair its injuries, and Qin Daoxian will have the opportunity to kill it. In other words, now Qin Daoxian's strength is 3 points stronger than that of ordinary cultivators in the early period of Zifu. The strength of the Qin family is naturally rising, but it is still not as good as the Zhou family and the Yang family. Since Lei Zhen can even refuse the solicitation of Zhou Yang's family, let alone the Qin family. Knowing the difficulty of recruiting, Qin Daoxian didn't care, and said with a smile, "I take the liberty to ask, is General Lei Guigang this year?" Hear this. Lei Zhen seemed a little unhappy in his heart, but still clasped his fists and said, "Lei is 87 years old this year." 87 years old, building the 8th floor of the foundation. Are you a cultivator of Tianlingen? Qin Daoxian said seriously. Yes. Lei Zhen nodded, but compared to your sword cultivators. Lei Zhen shook his head in disappointment. What about the cultivators of Tianlingen? Although Tianlingen is one of a million cultivators, there are at least hundreds of thousands of cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture. Looking at the entire Zhangzhou, the Tianlingen cultivator has increased tenfold or even dozens of times. There are dozens of states in the entire Wangxinghai, although Tianlingen cultivator is considered a genius, but if it is Tianjiao, it is far from enough. Only sword cultivators like Zhou Mubai and Qin Daoxian can truly be called the arrogance among cultivators. Qin Daoxian finally knew why Lei Zhen was so high-spirited that he didn't want to be a high-ranking guest. At the age of 87, he reached the 8th floor of the foundation building, and it would take less than 10 years at most to reach the 9th floor of the foundation building. At that time, it is to polish the real essence and prepare to break through the Zifu. At Lei Zhen's age, if he goes to the front line again and accumulates resources, I am afraid that he is really expected to be promoted to the Zifu period. After all, the lifespan of a foundation building cultivator is as much as 200 years. Lei Zhen polished his true yuan to a perfect state, and he was probably less than 110 years old. Completely in time to break through the Purple Mansion. The only pity is that Lei Zhen is not a family cultivator, and all the training resources he needs must be earned by himself. If the children of the big family had this kind of talent, they would have been trained as court children long ago. Just like Zhou Mubai and Yang Gongwan. For this reason, Qin Daoxian no longer covered it up. He bowed his hands and said, "If my Qin family is willing to offer all the resources of General Lei to break through the Zifu, I wonder if General Lei is willing to be my guest of the Qin family?" You mean, all the resources to break through to the Zifu period? Lei Zhen was so anxious that he even forgot his honorary title. That's right. Qin Daoxian nodded. Not only that, in the future, my Qin family is also willing to help General Lei to open up a family of immortals and pass down the line of Taoism from generation to generation. Hear this. Lei Zhen's breath suddenly became short, and he cupped his hands and said, "Master Commander, no, Master Chen's words are true." What's wrong with this? If General Lei doesn't believe it, what will I swear? No need. Lei Zhen waved his hands again and again. Lei Zhen can trust the promise of a sword repairer. Done. Lei Zhen immediately stood up from his seat and stood upright in front of Qin Daoxian. Immediately, he pushed the golden mountain, down the jade pillar, and knelt down and said, "Lei Mao is willing to drive the Qin family in the future, until he dies." Okay. Qin Daoxian was overjoyed. He stepped forward quickly, lifted Lei Zhen with both hands, and laughed loudly. "General Lei, please get up quickly. Wait until the other person stands up." Qin Daoxian smiled and said, "My Qin family can get the help of General Lei, which is like a tiger with wings. The Lord's words, the subordinates must not dare to take it." Lei Zhen said modestly. Although he was arrogant, he did not dare to show any arrogance in front of such a young swordsman. Because in terms of talent potential, Qin Daoxian can't stop him for 18 streets. This truth was deeply understood when he was defeated by Chen Daoxian with a sword at the Zhou family residence. Today, he is willing to become a guest of the Chen family and serve the Chen family as the master. In addition to the conditions that Chen Daoxian has given him that he cannot refuse, there is another important reason, that is, the worship of the strong. Humans are born to worship the strong, and the strong will only worship the stronger. Lei Zhen is a typical such person. After subduing Lei Zhen and watching the pair leave, Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. Outside the door, Chen Daochuan was waiting outside with a cultivator of the 9th level of qi refining. When he saw Lei Zhen pushing out the door, Chen Daochuan hurriedly smiled and cupped his hands. Lei Zhen knew that Chen Daochuan's status in the Chen family was not low, so he didn't dare to despise him because of his low cultivation level, and quickly returned the salute. Wait until Lei Zhen leaves. Chen Daochuan pushed the door and walked into the hall. Young Patriarch. Chen Daochuan bowed his hands. Chen Daoxian raised his head. Where is the person you invited? Waiting outside the hall. Call. Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. In the past few days, I have finally captured 7 of the 8 scattered repairmen in the Western Defense Zone coalition to my Chen family. Hear this. Chen Daochuan suddenly said with a smile on his face, congratulations to the young patriarch. Now, there are only Zhou Mucheng of the Zhou family, Wei Lidao of the Wei family, and the ignorant middle-stage foundation building casual cultivator. Talking about that ignorant loose cultivator, Chen Daoxuan's face was a little ugly. He, the commander of the coalition forces in the Western Defense District, the patriarch of the Chen family, and Corporal Li Xian, was rejected by him. Chen Daoxian was naturally a little unhappy in his heart. You must know that although other big clans will also recruit loose cultivators, they all send individuals out to recruit them. How could the dignified young patriarch, like Chen Daoxian, come to recruit them in person? The most important thing is that the other party actually refused. This made Chen Daoxian very uncomfortable. He thought that the conditions he gave were high enough. Since the other party was unwilling, Chen Daoxian would not let him continue to sit in the position of the commander of the Allied troops in the Western Defense Zone. Since it cannot be used by him, such a person will not be an eyesore if he is placed under his command. As the commander of the Western Defense District, Chen Daoxian had 10,000 reasons to dismiss him. The Allied forces headquarters will not be unhappy with Chen Daoxian because of this trivial matter. Otherwise, Zhou Mingho's investment in him would have been a waste of money. Taking a deep breath, Chen Daoxian nodded and said, "Let him come in." "Yes, young patriarch." Chen Daochuan bowed his hands, and then the people waiting outside the hall of sound transmission let him in. Take a closer look. Chen Daoxian discovered that the 9th level qi refining cultivator in front of him was actually an old acquaintance. Chapter 182. The middle-aged fat cultivator in front of him is no one else. It was the 9th level qi refining cultivator whom Chen Daoxian met on the way when he attended Yang Linyuan's Zifu banquet. Can't believe how many years have passed. The other party finally polished his infuriating energy to near perfection, and he was approaching the critical point of foundation building. Chen Daoxian still remembered that the fat monk's name seemed to be Zhang Zhixian, and his family was good at making magic talismans. Dao Yu Zhang, Chen Daoxian stood up with a smile, bowed his hands and said, "I haven't seen you for many years, Dao Yu Zhang, stay safe." Seeing this handsome face, tall and straight in front of him, a young cultivator with a hint of coercion all over his body, Zhang Zhixian simply did not dare to combine him with the 7th level qi refining cultivator in his memory. How many years has it been? The other party actually succeeded in building the foundation. Not only that, but at this moment, he became the master of the heroic city under his feet. This made Zhang Zhixian adapt to it. Junior Zhang Zhixian, I have met Senior Chen. Zhang Zhixian didn't dare to act recklessly because he had a relationship with Chen Daoxian before, and quickly bowed. Fellow Daoist Zhang doesn't have to be like this, since we are old friends, you and I should be friends of the same generation. Chen Daoxian said with a smile. This. Zhang Zhixian carefully looked at Chen Daoxuan's face, saw his sincere expression, and knew that he was not cheating, and a warm feeling surged in his heart. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "I have seen fellow Daoist Chen." "Haha," Chen Daoxian said with a smile, "I didn't expect to meet an old friend here today. It seems that the relationship between you and me is really close, heard." Zhang Zhixian couldn't help nodding, his chubby face grinned into a ball, and his eyes were almost squeezed out of sight. "If I remember it well, isn't Zhang Daoyu's family near Lingbei Island? Why did you come to me to watch Haixian City?" Chen Daoxian asked curiously. Zhang Zhixian smiled bitterly and said, "Daoyu Chen doesn't know anything. Last time I attended the banquet of Yang Laozu's Purple House, I was received by Yang Laozu after the Taoist friend. The Yang family wanted to recruit me to join the Guang'an Xianmeng, but I refused." He paused. "I'm afraid that my Zhang family's actions will offend the Guang'an Immortal Alliance, and I will not be able to stand in the Guang'an Immortal Alliance in the future, so I migrated here with my clan." In just a few words, Zhang Zhixian fully demonstrated the helplessness of a small family in front of the big forces. Although Chen Daoxian also rejected the invitation of Guang'an Xianmeng, because Shuanghu Island is far from Lingbei Island, he is not afraid that Guang'an Xianmeng will give him Chen's shoes. Say it again. Chen Daoxian succeeded in building the foundation soon after, and his strength soared to the point where he was comparable to a cultivator of the Zifu today. Even Yang Linyuan wanted his Yang family Tianjiao to make amends to Chen Daoxian. How could he offend the newly rising Chen family? Zhang Zixian's family does not have such a talented person as Chen Daoxian. If they continue to stay in the boundary of Lingbei Island, even the Yang family will not take the initiative to attack a mere qi refining family. But with so many families in the Guang'an Xianmeng united, it's hard to say whether there are people who see him upset and want to take revenge. At that time, the Zhang family's situation will be difficult. Therefore, Zhang Zixian's behavior can only be said to be helpless. Hear the other person's explanation. Chen Daoxian nodded clearly, and then smiled. How is your Zhang family's magic charm business in Guanhai Xianqing now? When it comes to family business, Zhang Zixian's face finally shows a touch of joy. He smiled and said, "Now the war between the East Defense Zone and the Lianhu Island Corps Group is in full swing, and the demand for magic charms on the front line is quite large. My Zhang family's business is quite good, heard." Chen Daoxian nodded. If he remembered correctly, now there is only the Zhang family who sells magic charms in the entire Guanhai Xianqing. The current Zhang family is quite similar to the Chen family who used to sell magic tools in Xianqing, Guang'an Prefecture. It is also full of vigor, and the family has ushered in the opportunity for development. To some extent. The corpse chaos in Guang'an Mansion this time also reshuffled the whole pattern of Guang'an Mansion. The Zhao family of Guang'an Prefecture was completely destroyed. Because the Wu family was slaughtered and more than 100 foundation building cultivators were slaughtered, and it was close to the corpse tide, it would inevitably decline in the future. Instead, the rise of the Chen family. Although the Chen family's current cultivators are still young, there are not many cultivators of the Taoist generation. But only a discerning person can see that the rise of the Chen family is unstoppable. Just relying on Chen Daoxian, a genius swordsman in his 20s, means that the Chen family has the potential to become a Jindan family in the future. How could such a family not rise up? Of course. In addition to the rise of the emerging big family of the Chen family in Guang'an Prefecture, other small families have also ushered in opportunities for development one by one. Zhang Zixian's family is only one of them, but by no means the only one. From this point of view, war is indeed something that can break down hierarchies. Without this war, the Chen family would have risen, but the process was definitely not as fast as it is now. Without the approval of the Zhou family, as well as the 80 million spirit stones allocated to the Western Defense Area by the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces, how can the Chen family have the ability to build a fairy city on Sequoia Island? Let's wait at least another decade or a few decades. This war has accelerated the rise of the Chen family by at least 10 years. This is what Chen Xian had told him: crisis is both danger and opportunity. For the Qin family, the corpse chaos in Guang'an is an opportunity. For some reason, Qin Daoxian didn't even want the war on the front line to end. Because the end of the war means that it will be difficult for the Qin family to reap such huge war dividends. Nowadays, with the gradual expansion of the production capacity of Chongping Pharmaceutical Factory and Hongyin Feijian Factory, every month, the profit from selling the pills and instruments to the front line is as many as millions of spirit stones. Although more than 1 million spirit stones were exchanged for military exploits, there were also more than 1 million spirit stones in pure profits. Although not every month has such a profit of more than 1 million spirit stones. But in the past 10 months, nearly 10 million spiritual stones have been accumulated for the Qin family. In other words, the Qin family's spiritual stones for cultivating third-order spiritual veins are almost ready. The two chatted up. The relationship is quite familiar. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost over, Qin Daoxian said directly, "I am dissatisfied with Dao Yuzhang. I have invited you to come here this time. There is indeed something to discuss." Hearing this, Zhang Zhixian raised his eyebrows slightly, stood up and cupped his hands, with a hard smile on his face. "No. I don't know what Dao Yuchen said. What is it? See him like this." Qin Daoxian smiled and waved his hand, motioning for the other party to sit down. "Wait until the other person is seated again." Qin Daoxian continued, "I wonder if you feel that it is quite inconvenient to trade with spirit stones?" Inconvenient? Zhang Zhixian was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that the Zhang family's income had skyrocketed in the past few months, with a monthly income of more than 100,000 spirit stones. Coupled with the transportation of goods, it is indeed a bit inconvenient to store and transport. If the Zhang family's business scale is further expanded in the future, this inconvenience will definitely become more significant. It's really inconvenient to settle goods with spirit stones, but fortunately there are storage bags, so it's not too inconvenient. Zhang Zhixian didn't know the deep meaning of Qin Daoxian's words, so he had to say so. Qin Daoxian is no nonsense. He took out a spirit stone coin, handed it over, and said, "I plan to promote this new type of currency in Guang'an Prefecture, and I call it a spirit stone coin. The value of this spirit stone coin is 100 yuan, which is equivalent to 100 spirit stones." Zhang Zhixian took the Lingshire coin handed over by Qin Daoxian and remained silent. "Fellow Daoist Zhang, don't get me wrong, my Qin family is not a white wolf with empty gloves, and I want to use this paper money to get the spirit stones of each of your families. I just want it to circulate in Guanhai Xiancheng instead of spirit stones. If you go out of the city to trade with other people, you can use this spirit stone coins to exchange for spirit stones at any time." How shrewd Zhang Zhixian was, he immediately sniffed out the smell. He hesitated and said, "But in this way, each family in Guanhai Xiancheng has a collection of spiritual stones stored in your Qin family's hands." "Indeed so." Qin Daoxian nodded without denying. "Hear this." Zhang Zhixian breathed a sigh of relief. For him, the problems that can be solved with spirit stones are not big problems. What he was most afraid of was that the Qin family also learned from the Guang'an Immortal Alliance and organized some kind of alliance. He Zhang family has small arms and calves, and he really can't participate in this kind of clan conflict game. Foreseeable. In the future, if there is a conflict between the Guang'an Immortal Alliance and the Zhou family, there is a high probability that nothing will happen to the Yang family and the Zhou family, but the small family of the Guang'an Immortal Alliance will definitely suffer a lot. These small families put themselves on their thighs because they thought they had joined the Guang'an Immortal Alliance, and they raised their eyebrows in Guang'an Mansion from then on. As everyone knows, this is the most stupid behavior. Others compete with big clans, and your small clan joins together. Besides becoming cannon fodder, is there a second end to it? At this point, Zhang Zhixian was extremely sober. As for the spirit stone coin launched by Qin Daoxian, in his opinion, he just wanted to make a rude slap on the various families in Guanhai Xiancheng. Although this delicious taste is a little ugly. But Zhang Zhixian is not incomprehensible. After all, to build this immortal city, the Qin family will definitely spend a lot of money. Not to mention the others, it will cost more than 10 million spiritual stones to build a third-order spiritual vein. Not to mention that the Chen family also built more than a dozen second-order spiritual veins around Sequoia Island for the migrating loose cultivators and small family cultivators to cultivate spiritual fields and elixir. This is another huge expense. In addition, the construction of Immortal City is the most expensive. It is difficult for Zhang Zhixian to imagine how much the Chen family paid to build this fairy city. Although it seems that this fairy city is far from complete. This just proves that the Chen family might have been hollowed out, and had to come up with this clumsy method to fight the autumn breeze against the major families in Guanhai Xiancheng. Think of this. Zhang Zhixian immediately cupped his hands and said, "Since it is the decree of Guanhai Xiancheng, my Zhang family should abide by it." Seeing Zhang Zhixian being so knowledgeable, Chen Daoxian nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, fellow Daoist Zhang is really refreshing." Hey. Zhang Zhixian breathed a sigh of relief, the two smiled at each other, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. The two chatted again. Chen Daoxian stood up to send them off in person. This gesture made Zhang Zhixian terrified. Watching Zhang Zhixian leave. Standing aside, Chen Daochuan, who had not spoken, murmured, "This is it, his Zhang family is willing to take out this spiritual stone." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian smiled and said, "How about being willing, what about not being willing? You know, this is the territory of my Chen family, and the words of my Chen family are the rules here. If they want to gain a foothold here, they can only abide by the rules of my Chen family. Daochuan, you have to adapt to your own identity." Chen Daochuan looked at the domineering Chen Daoxian, and was speechless. Chapter 183, The Next Month. Chen Daoxian kept summoning the various families who came to Guanhai Xiancheng to establish a foothold every day, as well as the loose cultivators who chose to open a shop in Guanhai Xiancheng, to promote spirit stone coins to them. Guanhai Xiancheng was newly built soon. Although it is not yet completed, many businesses have already settled in it. The entire Immortal City, although not as popular as Lingde Immortal City, is also becoming more and more prosperous. No way, monks need a lot of resources for cultivation, and no monk can produce any resources. This point is that the big family and even the sect forces cannot avoid it. Therefore, trade exchanges are very important for any cultivation force in this world. The stronger the cultivation force, the more prosperous its business activities tend to be. After all, only when the economy is prosperous will there be enough resources to give birth to more powerful monks. This is not much different from the previous life. Just as Chen Daoxian imagined, under his power, no family or loose cultivator who opened a shop dared to refuse to use the spirit stone coins. Of course, this means of pushing spirit stone coins forcibly. It will definitely leave the image of the Chen family as arrogant and domineering and greedy for money. But Chen Daoxian didn't care. How can outsiders see the benefits of a currency that is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people? Now they are repelling, and even rely on Chen Daoxian to use his strength to oppress the other party, forcing them to use the spirit stone coins in Guanhai Xiancheng. But after they used it for a while, they felt the benefits of the spirit stone coins. It must be felt that banknotes have too many advantages over spirit stones. In Chen Daoxuan's view, using spiritual stones as currency is not even as good as gold and silver in ancient times. At least gold and silver as currency, its reserves are fixed and will not suddenly decrease for no reason. The spirit stone is different. In addition to the currency attribute, it also has an important function, cultivating the spirit veins. Whether it was the Guang'an Xianmeng's construction of the spiritual veins, or the Zhou family's construction of the spiritual veins, a lot of spiritual stones were spent. After a large amount of spirit stones were consumed, the market in Guang'an Prefecture ushered in a shortage of spirit stones. This shortage of spiritual stones has caused a shortage of money in the entire Guang'an Prefecture. Many times, monks who lack spirit stones have to barter. But it goes without saying how inefficient bartering is. That is a backward economic phenomenon that only primitive societies have. Another important reason why Qin Daoxian insisted on promoting Lingxi coins is that the industrial production of Shuanghu Island will bring about a leap in productivity. Once these industrial products are put on the market, it will inevitably further aggravate the shortage of spirit stones. Now the industrial scale of the Qin family is small, and this phenomenon is not yet obvious. If the industrial scale of Shuanghu Island is expanded by 100 times, I am afraid that the spirit stones of the entire Guang'an prefecture will be concentrated in the transaction and circulation of the Qin family and the outside world, which will not be enough. By then, the industrial development of Shuanghu Island will inevitably be greatly hindered. If the development of industry depends on trade, then currency is the medium of trade, but this medium is not strong enough, and industrial development will inevitably be hindered. In the eyes of outsiders, Qin Daoxuan's move may be rash, but in fact, it is to clear the obstacles in advance for the industrialization of Shuanghu Island. A month later, the main hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in the Western Defense Zone. 10,000 soldiers, together with Qin Daoxian, sat upright in the hall. A long time. Wei Lidao of the Wei family stood up first and cupped his hands. Mr. Qi, the commander-in-chief, tomorrow will be the day to pay the soldiers of the coalition troops in the Western Defense Zone, but the spirit stones in our army seem to. Wei Lidao felt the oppression of Qin Daoxian, but he didn't dare to say what he said. Qin Daoxian raised his eyelids slightly and said with a smile, since tomorrow is the day when the army is paid, I have to say a few words. Everyone knows that although there are 80 million spirit stones in the military expenditure of our Western Defense Zone, this military expenditure seems to be a lot, but after careful study, it is not much. Purchase magic tools for soldiers, cultivate spiritual veins, build immortal cities, and distribute military salaries. As a result, military spending is already tight, but in this case, there are still people who dare to embezzle military spending. Qin Daoxuan's voice involuntarily increased a bit. You said, for this kind of phenomenon, can we tolerate this kind of phenomenon, up to the commander, down to the soldier in the Western Defense Zone? Heard. The crowd watched their eyes and noses and their hearts, and remained silent. But as we all know, since Qin Daoxian said this, he must be attacked. Lei Zhen suddenly stood up and said loudly, all our sergeants in the Western Defense Area, in order to build the immortal city, and to patrol the entire Western Defense Area, not only can't sleep at night, but even delay their own cultivation. That's it, there is still such a scum in our Western Defense Area, who can bear it? Yes. General Lei said it well. I can't bear it, this wind must not rise. Right. Seeing everyone's approval, Zhou Muqing didn't say a word, and Wei Lidao beat his heart. Xia Hong, don't get out yet. Qin Daoxuan's voice exploded in the long ears of a loose cultivator. Heard. The face of this middle-stage foundation building cultivator named Xia Hong became very ugly. He bit his head and stood up, cupped his hands and said, Master Commander, I don't know what to do. What's your order? Qin Daoxian sneered, do you want me to scold you in public for your good deeds? Hearing this, Xia Hong's expression changed again. His hands trembled slightly, his eyes were full of resentment, and he said in a trembling voice, I hope the commander will make it clear. How to convict embezzlement of military expenses according to the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces military law. Hearing this, Zhou Muqing, who was in charge of the 10,000 soldiers and the military governor, stood up and said, according to the laws of the coalition, those who embezzle military expenses in Mexico will be punished with different responsibilities according to the amount of military expenses in Mexico. Those who embezzle less than 100,000 spiritual stones will be dismissed from the army and punished with whipping and branding. Those who embezzle more than 100,000 spirit stones will be dismissed from the army and sentenced to the punishment of piercing nails. Those who embezzle more than 1 million spiritual stones shall be punished by death. Everyone listened. Qin Daoxian waved his hand and said to the outside of the hall, carry in, next moment. A group of soldiers, carrying 15 shoulder-height boxes, slowly entered the hall. Lord Commander, these are all spirit stones found in General Xia's Lingfu, heard. Qin Daoxian nodded and said indifferently, I see, you all go down. Yes, Lord Commander. Watching the soldiers retreat, Chen Daoxian walked to the first box, waved his hand gently, and the box suddenly opened. I saw a box full of spirit stones inside. General Xia, what else do you have to say? Planned, it must be planted. When Xia Hong saw this scene, his eyes were red, as if he was going to choose someone to devour. It must be you. You saw that you couldn't recruit me, so you used this dirty method to frame me. Ah, Chen Daoxian sneered, you are a mere cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building. Why would you let me, a sword cultivator, personally recruit you? After he finished speaking, he looked at Zhou Muqing again and said, what's the crime of the governor of Zhou, slandering Shangguan, in the coalition army? Dismissal investigation. Zhou Muqing cherishes his words like gold. Chen Daoxian nodded, picked up a spirit stone in the box at will, and said, TSK, this box of spirit stones, I am afraid there are more than 100,000 spirit stones, 15 boxes of spirit stones. General Xia has such a big appetite. Xia Hong's face was ashen, and there was a hint of despair in his eyes. 15 boxes of spirit stones are more than 1 million spirit stones. Execute. Thinking of this guilt, Xia Hong completely collapsed. It's you, it's you. It's you who framed me. I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty. Xia Hong's face flushed red, and he looked like a madman. Chen Daoxian. I have fought with you. Say it. Immediately, he slapped the storage bag at his waist, and a flying sword went straight to Chen Daoxian's face. This sword light is as fast as lightning in the eyes of outsiders, but in the eyes of Chen Daoxian, it is clumsy. I saw that he stretched out a finger, flicked forward lightly, and struck the tip of the flying sword. The next moment, Fei Jian let out a faint whimper and flew back quickly. Commander Zhou, what's the crime of attacking the commander? Capital offense. Zhou Muqing's words revealed a hint of murderous intent. When everyone saw this scene, they knew that Xia Hong was dead. This fool. Wei Lidao sighed secretly. Sword light incarnation. Chen Daoxian bullied his body with a sword finger and pointed at Xia Hong's Dantian Qi Si, smashing his Dantian Qi Si to pieces. Puff. Xia Hong spat out a mouthful of blood, and immediately fell down. The Dantian Qi Si was destroyed, and Xia Hong was completely destroyed. Seeing Chen Daoxian's ruthless scene, everyone felt a chill in their hearts at this moment, even if they were the 7 scattered cultivators who swore allegiance to his Chen family. But at the same time, I am also very happy in my heart. Fortunately, they agreed to Chen Daoxian's solicitation at the beginning, otherwise it would be them who would be abolished lying on the ground. Xia Hong struggled and wanted to stand up, but he couldn't get up with trembling. Chen Daoxian walked to the remaining 14 boxes and opened them one by one. I saw the remaining 14 boxes, and each box contained only 1 spirit stone. Chen Daoxian lowered his head, looked at Xia Hong, who couldn't get up, and sighed, General Xia, it's just embezzlement of hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones, and the crime is not worth death. Why do you want to die? Then he shook his head and said, these boys, a spiritual stone is still packed in a box, isn't this scaring people? It's really. Hear this. Xia Hong was so angry that his eyes went black and he was unconscious. He didn't even look at Xia Hong, who was lying on the ground not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Chen Daoxian paced back to the first place, looked up at Wei Li and said, where did you just say? Ben, Commander, the subordinate just said about the payment. Oh, yes, pay for the army. Chen Daoxian clapped his hands suddenly, look at my memory, don't mind me. Don't mind. Master Commander is busy with everything, it's normal to forget. Exactly. Zhou Muqing looked at the young figure sitting in the first place, and couldn't put him together with the young monks from other families who had to rely on themselves to intimidate other families in Sangxiafang City in Guang'an Prefecture a few years ago. The Chen family has really risen. At this moment, Zhou Muqing only had this thought in his mind. Chen Daoxian pressed lightly with his hand, and the hall returned to silence. I believe everyone has heard some rumors recently. Chen Daoxian paused. I'm going to use a new type of paper currency in Guanhai Xianqing to replace the spirit stone for transaction purposes. Chapter 184 said, he took out 2 full boxes of spirit stone coins from the storage bag. Comparing these 2 boxes with the box that was just carried into the hall, it was almost the difference between a child and an adult. Opened the box. Contained a stack of neatly stacked coins. These banknotes looked quite like the currency of the previous life, and Chen Daoxian couldn't help but feel familiar for a while. This world, finally with his arrival, began to change a little bit. Although these changes are limited to Guanhai Xianqing in Guang'an Prefecture. But he believed that with the expansion of his forces, this change would gradually cover the entire Guang'an Prefecture and even the entire Zhangzhou. I'm sure some of you have seen this note. Chen Daoxian took out 900 yuan bills and distributed them to the 9 senior officers present. Though Lei Zhen heard that Guanhai Xianqing would use a brand new currency in the future, but it was the first time he saw it in detail. For a while. Can't help but be curious. He carefully looked at the banknote in his hand, and found that the back of it was a thumbnail of the entire Guang'an Prefecture, and the front depicted was the overall picture of Guanhai Xianqing. Looks majestic and has a very visual impact. In addition, the number 100 is written on the middle left of the banknote. Come to think of it, this is the 100 denomination spirit stone coin in the mouth of the Lord. Seeing the crowd do not speak. Chen Daoxian continued, my idea is to let the soldiers receive this new currency as military pay. This time. Everyone whispered. Zhou Muqing stood up and frowned, Master Commander, if this happens, will it cause the soldiers below to mutiny? Wei Lidao also nodded and said, yes, Lord Commander, after all, everyone only recognizes spirit stones in their hearts. A soldier in the late stage of qi refining is paid 500 spirit stones for a year, a soldier in the middle stage of qi refining is 300 spirit stones, and a soldier in the early stage of qi refining is 100 spirit stones. Stone. But now, soldiers in the late stage of qi refining can only take 5 banknotes, and soldiers in the early stage of qi refining can only take 1. This. Wei Lidao was speechless. Although the strength of a single qi refining stage soldier is low, but the entire Western Defense Zone is full of 100,000 qi refining period soldiers, plus 1,000 base building officers. Once the trouble arises, even if Chen Daoxian's strength is comparable to that of a cultivator in Zifu, he may not be able to. Repressed live. Chen Daoxian waved his hand and said, tell the soldiers below that there are too many spirit stones and it will be troublesome to issue. You can use the banknotes in your hand to go to the Chongping Central Bank, the largest in the central block of Guanhai Xianqing, and put the banknotes converted to spirit stones. Of course, if you don't want to exchange, you can directly use the spirit stone coins in your hand to buy goods in any store in Guang'an Prefecture. This. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Wei Lidao was quite puzzled. Why do you need to do this, Lord Commander? Just tell the soldiers below that. Chen Daoxian waved his hand. In addition to the commander Chen Daoxian, 7 senior members of the coalition forces in the entire Western Defense District have been recruited by Chen Daoxian to become Qinjia Kaching. There were 3 people left. Xia Hong was abolished, and although Zhou Muqing had the post of warden, he had the most complicated relationship with Chen Daoxian, and it was impossible for him to stand up against him. As for Wei Lidao, he looked like he was trembling when he spoke. Is obviously afraid of Chen Daoxian to the core. Just started. Everyone also thinks that Chen Daoxian, the commander, is easy to talk. Everyone has been with him for nearly a year, but he has not seen 3 fires when he takes office as a new official. I didn't expect Chen Daoxian's fire to burn so late and so fiercely, that in one face-to-face, a 10,000 commander of the coalition army was abolished. Regardless of whether Xia Hong was corrupt or not, someone else framed it. Said that he attacked Chen Daoxian in public, which was an obvious thing for all to see. Just based on this behavior, it is a capital offense wherever it is said. This is why Wei Lidao said he was stupid. If he doesn't take action against Chen Daoxian in public, there is still the possibility of refuting the matter of embezzling the spirit stone. Whether it is the oath of the Great Road or the questioning of the heart, he can clear his grievances. Even if the grievances cannot be completely remedied, the big deal is dismissal from the military, but the crime will definitely not lead to death. But he was so anxious that he attacked Shengguan and put the biggest handle in the hands of Chen Daoxian. At this time, no matter who comes to condemnation, he will not escape death. This is also the reason why Wei Lidao is afraid of Chen Daoxian. In his eyes, although Chen Daoxian is young, he is cruel. What's even more terrifying is that this person is still tyrannical. Chen Daoxian has everything in his means and strength, how could he dare to contradict Chen Daoxian again? The question was raised just now, and I was also worried that Chen Daoxian's forcible push of spirit stone coins in the army might cause more trouble. At that time, Chen Daoxian as the commander may not be in trouble. But they, the tens of thousands of soldiers who issued specific orders, might have to throw one or two out to stabilize the morale of the army. And Wei Lidao is the one who is most likely to be thrown out to quell the anger of the soldiers. Because of his personal relationship with Chen Daoxian, he is inferior to Zhou Mucheng. In terms of the speed of surrender, he is not as good as Lei Zhen and other lore cultivators. The candidate to take the blame can only be him. But now, Chen Daoxian has explained that he can go to Chongping Central Bank to exchange spirit stones with spirit stone coins. Wei Lidao's hanging heart also let go. This move is nothing more than changing the location of the military salaries of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone to the Chongping Central Bank in Guanhai Xiancheng. Is a little more troublesome for the soldiers. But for this trivial matter, how could the soldiers in the Qi refining period dare to look for the Shengguan in the foundation building period to show their teeth? The next day, in the barracks of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, a group of soldiers lined up facing the pay distribution office. Overlooked from above. In front of the 6 military pay distribution points, 6 long queues lined up. What are you doing? Aren't you giving out spirit stones? How can you give me a piece of paper? After a hot-tempered soldier got 5 spirit stone coins of 100 denominations in his hand, he burst out immediately. What are you yelling? Don't you have eyes? The person in front of him who was in charge of distributing the military salaries was a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building. At this moment, the momentum of the foundation building stage was pressing on the soldier in the later stage of Qi refining, and he almost didn't push the opponent down. The troublesome soldier immediately calmed down, bowed his hands towards the officer who issued the military salary, and said, "Sorry, forgive me, this subordinate didn't mean it, it was just a moment of indignation." Seeing that the soldier's mood had stabilized, the base building cultivator who paid the military salaries nodded slightly, pointed to the bulletin not far away, and said, "Learn to read and see for yourself," finished. Ignored the soldier at the late stage of Qi refining, and began to pay the soldiers behind him. Nie Zhong is a late-stage Qi refining loose cultivator in Guang'an Prefecture. At the very beginning, he was a spiritual planter in the Zhou family's many spiritual veins. In other words, is also the tenant of the Zhou family, but he is the tenant who planted spiritual fields for the Zhou family. Speaking of which, the spiritual stones that Nie Zhong earns throughout the year are not necessarily as much as those of the loose cultivators who drive mortals to farm. After that, the Yang family led the formation of the Guang'an Immortal League, and built a large number of spiritual veins on the islands in the sea area of Jinwu Island, and invited scattered cultivators from the outside world to open up spiritual fields on these islands and plant spiritual medicines. This made Nie Zhong, who had been under pressure from the Zhou family for a long time, excited. Hurriedly packed up and rushed to the realm of Guang'an Xianmeng immediately. Pity. A year or two have passed since the good days, when the tide of corpses broke out on Lotus Island. The destruction of the Zhao family in Guang'an Prefecture has made all the loose cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture feel very concerned. He, a cultivator in the late stage of Qi refinement in Nie Zhong district, is naturally extremely afraid. During that time, even when he practiced at night, he would be suspicious, for fear that the island he was on would be invaded by evil things like the Zhao family. Fortunately, the Zhou family took the lead and formed the Guang'an Prefecture Coalition Army, delineating 5 defense areas to protect the stability of the entire Guang'an Prefecture. Now, those restless cultivators finally have the backbone. It also includes Nie Zhong. Nie Zhong joined the Guang'an Prefecture Coalition Army right away. In his opinion, it was undoubtedly the safest among the Guang'an Prefecture Coalition forces, because there were cultivators from Zifu in the coalition army. These small shrimps during the qi refining period are naturally full of security. The only pity is that he was not assigned to the Central Defense Zone. Because the Central Defense Zone is where the Zhou family is located, with the strength of the Zhou family, it is undoubtedly the safest place in the entire Guang'an Prefecture. However, it is better to be assigned to the Western Defense Zone. Although the Western Defense Zone is weak, it is not without advantages. That is, the West Defense Area is the farthest from the East Defense Area, and is the least likely to be attacked by the corpse tide on Lotus Island. In addition, the Chen family in the West Defense Zone also cultivated spiritual veins on the islands near Sequoia Island for the scattered cultivators to open up spiritual fields and plant spiritual medicines. This time, Nie Zhong's mind completely settled down. He has already made plans for the future. He will first serve in the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone. When the service is over, he should have accumulated a considerable amount of spiritual stones in his hands. By the time he went to the spiritual veins around Sequoia Island to rent land to cultivate spiritual fields. Anyway, with his spiritual planting skills, it was a piece of cake for him to open up spiritual fields. As far as he knows, the spiritual veins cultivated by the Chen family around Sequoia Island are not only of the second rank. And the cost of renting land is also much lower than that of Guang'an Xianmeng and Zhou family. That's how it goes. In the future, he will not only be able to open up spiritual fields, but even have enough spiritual stones to grow spiritual medicines with higher economic value. Just when he was full of longing for the outside world and was about to receive the first military pay in his life, he found that he only received 5 banknotes. What banknotes? These are 5 talismans. Although he didn't know what material these 5 talisman papers were made of, Nie Zhong, who had been dealing with Lingji all day, could still keenly smell the scent of Lingji on the talisman papers. With 5 talismans, he wanted to covet his military pay for a year of hard patrolling. At this moment, General Nie Zhong's anger and humiliation that he had been oppressed by the big family for so many years all erupted. But before he could be stubborn for a few seconds, under the pressure of the foundation building cultivator's momentum, he was instantly cowardly again. Sanson followed the instructions of the senior official who established the foundation. Looking at the explanation on the list on the side, Nie Zhong understood the purpose of the paper money in his hand. Can I exchange spirit stones at Chongping Central Bank in Guanhai Xiancheng? Can I spend it directly in shops in Guanhai Xiancheng? Is it true? Nie Zhong muttered. Hurry up, if you're late, the spirit stones of the Chongping Central Bank will all be exchanged. Yes, these big figures came up with this kind of paper money. It must be a new trick that the spirit stones are not enough to pay the army. Quick! Let's hurry over there. Chapter 185. Hear this. Nie Zhong immediately gave his head and did not dare to delay. Guanhai Immortal City is different from Lingri Immortal City and Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City. Guanhai Xiancheng does not have a city entrance tax. As long as the Wanxinghai cultivator enters the Guanhai Xiancheng, he does not need to pay taxes. Compared with the city entry tax, Chen Daoxian valued the profits and taxes brought by trade. The actual area of Guanhai Xiancheng is very large, even more than Guang'an Palace Xiancheng, but most of it is still empty and has not been completed. The actual completed area can only account for about 1/10 of the entire Guanhai Xiancheng. Even so, more than 200,000 monks gathered in this small fairy city, which also made the whole fairy city lively enough. Especially today is the day of military pay. A large number of soldiers took spirit stone coins and went to Chongping Central Bank in the central block of Guanhai Xianqing to exchange spirit stones. Chongping Central Bank has a total of 16 working windows. But tens of thousands of people came to exchange the spirit stones, and the long queues lined up the whole street to become waterlogged. Inside the Chongping Central Bank, accompanied by Lei Zhen, Chen Daochuan watched the soldiers who came to exchange spirit stones, feeling a little uneasy in his heart. General Lei, do you think these soldiers can accept the spirit stone coins issued by my Guanhai Xianqing? Lei Zhen thought for a while, then shook his head and said, I don't know about the last general. The young patriarch said that the value of currency depends on the commodity. As long as the spirit stone coins we issue can actually buy medicines such as medicine pills, magic weapons, and spirit charms, it will have value, right? Hearing this, Lei Zhen hesitated and said, like the military exploits of the Qianyuan sword sect? It's a very vivid metaphor, but it is still different from the military exploits of Qianyuan Jianzong. Chen Daochuan has been trained by Chen Daoxian for nearly a month, and he has almost the deepest understanding of the nature of currency. After Chen Daoxuan's narration, he deeply understood that the industrial development of Shuanghu Island is inseparable from the support of a currency with sufficient circulation. Although the spirit stone is widely circulated, its quantity is not enough. At least in Guang'an, it's not enough. In the crowd, Nie Zhong was in a long line, and it was not easy to wait for him. I saw him looking at the staff in the window and said loudly, exchange 500 spirit stones for me. As he said that, he handed over $500 spirit stone coins. Are you sure you want to exchange 500 spirit stone coins for 500 spirit stones? Sure, please hurry up. Nie Zhong urged. Through the window, he could see the spiritual stones piled up in the mountains, if it weren't for the faint coercion of the foundation building monks exuding in the entire hall. Nie Zhong really had a desperate idea. Suppressing the thought of courting death in his heart, Nie Zhongxi smiled and was about to take the 500 spirit stones. Side window. A panting fat cultivator took out a pile of spirit stones from his storage bag and kept stacking them at the counter. Nie Zhong glanced at it and saw that there were at least hundreds of spirit stones. Trouble, help me exchange all these spirit stones for spirit stone coins, hurry up. The fat cultivator looked irritated, the shopkeepers in these shops are all sick. They don't accept good spirit stones, they all accept spirit stone coins, soon. From time to time, someone in the team took out the spirit stone from the storage bag and exchanged it for spirit stone coins. Hello, do you still want to exchange spirit stones? Inside the window, the staff saw that Nie Zhong did not speak, and asked again and again. Wait a minute. Nie Zhong hesitated. After that, he took the 500 spirit stone coins back from the bank staff. Can this paper money really be spent? Walking out of the Chongping Central Bank, Nie Zhong was full of doubts. Walk all the way to a shop selling spirit seeds. Nie Zhong stopped and walked into the store. The treasurer. As soon as he entered the store, Nie Zhong shouted. My dear, what do you want to buy? As soon as he entered the store, an old man in his 60s greeted him with a red face. Our store has all kinds of spiritual rice seeds, spiritual medicine seeds, and a variety of rare spiritual plant seeds. Done. The old man handed over a jade slip and said, this is the complete picture book of the spirit species. It contains the introduction and price of various spirit species. Please read it. Nie Zhong took the jade slip handed over by the old man, his consciousness sank into it, and he checked it. A long time. Nie Zhong withdrew his consciousness and frowned. Master, why are the prices marked with spirit stones in your illustrated book? Can't you use spirit stones to buy them? Excuse me, guest, the old man smiled and cupped his hands. According to the decree of Guanhai Xianqing, starting from today this month, the whole city will implement a new currency, that is, spirit stone coins. If you don't have spirit stone coins, you can go to Chongping Central Bank in the central block in exchange for spirit stones. Hearing this, Nie Zhong took out 100 yuan spirit stone coin from the storage bag, and said, take a look at the shopkeeper, is it this kind of paper money? See. The old man took the spirit stone coin from Nie Zhong. I saw him pick up the spirit stone coin, shake it lightly, then carefully look at the pattern on it, and finally took it to his nose and sniffed it, and finally said with a smile, "Yes, this is the currency." Just this note, worth 100 spirit stones? Nie Zhong wondered. Yes, it is worth 100 spirit stones. Can't you take it to Chongping Central Bank to exchange spirit stones? What else do you doubt? Hearing this, Nie Zhong shook his head and said, I really don't know what this Guanhai Xianqing is doing. Who knows? The old man also sighed with emotion. Look, guest, you want to buy. Nie Zhong took the spirit stone coins and said with a smile, Forgive me, shopkeeper, I am a soldier of the coalition army, and I will definitely not be able to buy your spirit seeds for the time being. After 2 years, I will take care of your business after I retire. Hear this. The old man was not angry, and said with a smile, Guest officer, please go well, and welcome to take care of the old business in the future. Good talk, good talk. Nie Zhong bowed his hands and exited the store. Next. Nie Zhong visited several shops and found that spirit stone coins could actually be spent, and what was even more strange was that the shops in Guanhai Xianqing did not accept spirit stones. Please forgive me, our Zhang's spirit talisman store can't really accept spirit stones. You can take the spirit stones to the Chongping Central Bank, exchange them for spirit stone coins, and then go to the store to buy spirit talismans. Shops are running. Among them, there are also shops that secretly collect spirit stones, but these shops were quickly caught by the patrolling soldiers and imposed a very high fine. So far, Nie Zhong rarely sees shops that dare to violate the laws of Guanhai Xianqing. Scene. Overnight, the currency used in this immortal city changed from spirit stones to banknotes in his hand. Thought here. He tossed the spirit stone coin in his hand, making a rustling sound. Really interesting. Nie Zhong muttered. The Western Defense Zone Coalition Force Station. In a dark dungeon. This dungeon, since its construction, has rarely been used except for occasional soldiers who violated military discipline have been imprisoned. Chen Daoxian walked step by step to a cell inscribed with array patterns. To the soldier next to him, opened the door. Yes, Lord Commander. After the soldier bowed and saluted, he quickly opened the cell door. In the cell, a middle-aged cultivator lay on the ground with a pale face, with shackles on his hands and feet, who was not Xia Hong, the former leader of 10,000 soldiers. Okay, don't pretend, my finger just shattered your air, and didn't hurt your body, you can't die. Hear this. Xia Hong suddenly opened his eyes and roared, Chen Daoxian, you use your public tools for private use, you are despicable and shameless, you will not succeed in recruiting, you will be jealous, and you will frame the blame for me. Just wait, the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces will definitely give me justice in this matter, and the Chenyuan Sword Sect will definitely not let you, a scum, be spared. Xia Hong waved his hands excitedly, and the shackles made a clattering sound under his struggle. I remember that the Sea of Qi in the Dantian was broken, and there is a kind of elixir that seems to be able to repair it. What is it called? Chen Daoxian immediately put on a contemplative expression. Yes, Tian Bu Tian pill, the Tian Bu Tian pill of the Qinghui Taoist school. Hear this. Xia Hong was immediately hit hard, and then said solemnly, What do you want to say? Actually, I'm very curious. It stands to reason that the conditions for my Qin family to recruit you. Looking at the entire Wangxinghai, there will be no second company that can offer a higher price. You can't be tempted. Chen Daoxian paused. I think you are a proud person for the time being, even Zifu Dan can't impress you, but I framed you so much in front of everyone yesterday, and you didn't even argue. Is it hard to prove your innocence? The oath of the Great Road and the mirror of the heart can all prove your innocence. Oh, by the way, allegiance to my Qin family must also be pledged to the Great Tao. Why are you so afraid of taking the oath of the Great Way? What are you afraid of? Xia Hong. Chen Daoxian looked at Xia Hong, who was trembling all over in the dungeon, and smiled, "You wanted to die yesterday, but I didn't expect that I didn't kill you, but abolished you. Don't you think it's too late if you want to live after you got away with it, and now you want to die again?" Although Xia Hong's Dantian Qi Si was destroyed, he was still a foundation-building cultivator. Only, he found that all over his body, even his consciousness was almost frozen by the person in front of him. This man, so strong. Too strong. Xia Hong shivered in his heart. "Xia Hong, I'm not wrong about Xin Cun who fought in the Battle of Zhenangwen back then, right?" Chen Daoxian slowly crouched down in front of him, looking directly into his eyes. "Tell me, how did you come back?" Xia Hong's face turned red and he was speechless. Chen Daoxian squeezed a seal in his hand and pressed it directly on the opponent's body, sealing him all over, leaving only one mouth to move. "Hey hey." A penetrating smile appeared on Xia Hong's face. He stared at Chen Daoxian and said with a strange smile, "Chen Daoxian, do you think you can live? You all have to die, you all have to die. I'm waiting for you below, I'm waiting for you, not good." Chen Daoxian's expression changed, and he quickly stretched out his hand to stop it, but a huge force directly bounced his hand away. Looking again, Xia Hong had already died of anger. See this scene. Chen Daoxian's face was ashen. Chapter 186, looked at Xia Hong who died in front of him. Chen Daoxian felt like there was a stone in his heart. The Battle of Zhenangwen, the corpse tied in Guang'an, and the subtle attitude of Qianyuan Zhenzong to Zhangzhou over the years. All of this, like a cloud of mist, shrouded Chen Daoxian's heart. This Xia Hong, if his guess is correct, it should be the dark son of the Xianqing Dao League placed in Wangxinghai. In fact, it is not uncommon for major forces to plant spies on each other's territory. Xianqing Dao Alliance can place Anzi in Wangxinghai, and Qianyuan Sword Sect can naturally place Anzi in Xianqing Dao Alliance. It depends on which of the two sides has the better means. But judging from the situation in which the Qianyuan Zhenzong family is pressing the opposite two to fight, it is clear that the Qianyuan Zhenzong is superior. Chen Daoxian was not worried about this. He just felt that what Xia Hong said before his death seemed to have a point. All to die. Chen Daoxian raised his head. Is he referring to the corpse tied in Guang'an? Shook his head. Chen Daoxian, who did not know what he was referring to, threw the distracting thoughts out of his mind. Now he has too little information to analyze anything at all. But one thing is certain. If you want to deal with all this, you can only strengthen your own strength. Until one day in the future, the Chen family will develop to the point where it can be comparable to or even stronger than Qianyuan Zhenzong. These conspiracies are all vulnerable in the face of absolute strength. Think of this. Chen Daoxian silently put away the lavender shadow stone in his hand and walked out of the cell. 1,000 soldiers died in the coalition forces in the Western Defense Area. According to the regulations, he must report it. And what he held in his hand was absolute proof that Xia Hong was a spy. With this evidence in hand, no matter what he said, Chen Daoxian, as the commander of the coalition army, did not have any faults, but made contributions. It's just that Xia Hong died too early. There are still too many things to explain. But if you think about it carefully, since the Xianqing Dao League dared to install an Anzi in Wangxinghai, how could it not leave behind? Even if Xia Hong is sent to Qianyuan Zhenzong, it is estimated that it will be difficult to extract any valuable information. Get out of the dungeon. Chen Daoxian glanced at the bright sunshine in the sky, and his mood gradually eased. Right now, the most important thing for the Chen family is to ensure the stable operation of Guanhai Xianqing. He is almost eager to issue spirit stone coins, which will definitely cause chaos to the development of Guanhai Xianqing in a short period of time. But Chen Daoxian believed. As long as the monks who reside in Guanhai Xianqing are convinced that the spirit stone coins can actually be exchanged for spirit stones, there will be no major problems in its circulation in Guanhai Xianqing. In the final analysis, the spirit stone coins are only equivalent to the silver notes of the ancient past. is still fundamentally different from modern money that uses credit as collateral. In order to ensure the stable operation of Guanhai Xiancheng, in addition to active business and trade, there is another important factor, which is the protection of force. At this point, the Qin family is very lacking. At present, the military protection of Guanhai Xiancheng completely depends on the strength of the Western Defense Zone coalition forces and Qin Daoxuan's strength comparable to the cultivator of Zifu. The other Qin family cultivators were of no use here. What Qin Daoxian needs to do next is to enhance the strength of the other cultivators of the Qin family. If it weren't for the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic breaking through the second layer, it would have the new function of preaching. Qin Daoxian intends to strengthen the hard power of the Qin family little by little in 10 years or even 100 years. But now, there is a preaching function. He believes that this time will be shortened more than tenfold. Because he himself is a typical example. Shuanghu Island. Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Daochu and Qin Daolian, and said with a smile, I originally thought that Daochu would build a foundation a year earlier than you, but I didn't expect you two to reach the threshold of foundation building at the same time. Heard this? Qin Daolian raised her head slightly, her pretty face filled with an unstoppable smile. Qin Daochu said annoyed, young patriarch, I was dragged down by the heavy research and development tasks in the laboratory. You just let me finish the paper money, and now you let me transform the melting furnace and centrifugal wall breaker, and what kind of spirit is there? Pressing device, laying the aura network of Shuanghu Island. Qin Daochu's mouth kept ranting like a laser gun. Hearing Qin Daoxian shaking his head, he smiled and said, it's hard work for those who are capable. You did a good job with that banknote last time. Not only is the anti-counterfeiting ability first-rate, but it is also easy to manufacture. The most important thing is that you even invented the matching currency detector. Out! But you gave me too many tasks all at once. Didn't you say that you set up the Magical Instrument Research Institute to study high-level spirit armor and war instruments? Qin Daochu was complaining and curious. Yes, but there is no need for research at this time. Qin Daoxian paused. In the jade slips of the Qianyuan Sword Sex War Exploits Exchange, there is a second-order high-grade spirit armor inheritance for exchange. If you can spend money, let's buy it first. I will use my Lingfu in Guanhai Xiancheng as a foundation for the two of you. The spiritual vein of the family also has a second order, or I will build the foundation in the spiritual vein of the family. Qin Daolian hesitated. No, let me go to the family's spiritual veins to build the foundation, and let Daolian go to watch the Haixian city. I am afraid that she is not serious in her usual practice, and the foundation will have an accident. Who do you say is not serious about cultivation? Qin Daolian glared with apricot eyes. Okay, don't argue. Are you breaking through the purple mansion? A third-order spiritual vein is not enough for your two qi cultivators to build a foundation? Qin Daoxian waved his hand. Listen to me, go to Guanhai Xiancheng, and I will protect the law for you personally. Heard the words. Qin Daolian and Qin Daochu looked at each other and said in unison, yes, young patriarch. The next day, Qin Daolian and Qin Daochu are ready to go to Guanhai Xiancheng with Qin Daoxian. Unexpectedly, Qin Xianhe rushed over. Seeing Qin Xianhe, everyone saluted. Uncle 13. Old patriarch. Qin Xianhe nodded with a smile, and then said angrily, you two little guys are finally going to build a foundation. If Qin Daolin didn't tell me about such a big thing, I would have been kept in the dark by you guys. Cough, Uncle 13, this is not a big deal. My Qin family has a second and third foundation building cultivator, isn't this a big deal? Qin Xianhe seemed to point, I see that everything has been going well for you recently, you must have gotten carried away. Seeing that Qin Daoxian was reprimanded by the old patriarch, Qin Daochu and Qin Daolian covered their mouths and wanted to laugh but didn't dare to laugh. What Uncle 13 taught is. Qin Daoxian only smiled bitterly when he saw this. Several people finished speaking. Qin Daoxian carried the three of Qin Xianhe with a flying sword and came to Guanhai Xiancheng together. Guanhai Xiancheng's forbidden air formation is invalid for monks above the foundation stage, which is quite similar to Lingde Xiancheng. Flew all the way to Chen Daoxuan's Lingfu located in Guanhai Xiancheng. Lowers the light. Chen Daoxian pointed to the two main spiritual eyes in the Lingfu, and said, "The two of you are building the foundation, and those two spiritual eyes are respectively. I have set up sound insulation and protective formations for the two spiritual eyes, plus I am protecting the magic outside. No one will disturb the process of building the foundation. You can rest assured to build the foundation." "Yes, young patriarch." Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian bowed their hands gratefully after hearing this. Watched Chen Daolian and Chen Daochu enter the secret room to retreat and build the foundation. Chen Daoxian turned around, looked at Chen Xian and said, "Uncle 13, is there anything you want to tell me?" Chapter 187. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Watch Haixian City. Chen Daoxuan's spiritual residence. Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian almost walked out of the retreat room one after the other. I saw the two again. They were already a monk in the early stage of foundation building. See this scene. Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian, who had been waiting outside for 3 days, quickly got up from the stone bench and greeted them. "Daochu, Daolian, you have become." Chen Xianhe said excitedly. "Patriarch, young patriarch, we succeeded." The two looked at each other, then looked at Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe, smiled and nodded. Okay. Although Chen Daoxian knew that there would be no problem for the two to build the foundation. But seeing that the two of them completed in one go, and did not encounter any accidents on the way to the foundation, I was still relieved. After all, the last time he built the foundation was an accident, and it took a full month to build the foundation successfully. Of course, he has been building foundations for a long time, and his strength after foundation building is far beyond what ordinary foundation building cultivators can match. Dao Xian, now my Chen family finally has 2 more Taoist cultivators who can be independent. Congratulations on this matter. Yes, Chen Daoxian nodded with a smile, then thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Let's just celebrate. Now Guang'an Prefecture is in the midst of a war with the Lianhua Island Corps Group, so it's not appropriate to celebrate with great fanfare. Besides, my Chen family is not what it used to be. There are 2 more foundation building cultivators, so there is nothing to celebrate. We can just be happy in private," said, looked at Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian, and said with a smile, "I'm going to wrong you too." Chen Daochu bared his teeth, shook his head and said, "Don't be wronged. Isn't this what you often say, young patriarch, to make a fortune in silence?" Chen Daoxian nodded and said with deep eyes, "It's good if you can understand. From now on, it's not just the 2 of you, but the rest of the people, especially the people of the Fu family, who will build the foundation, and even break through the Z Palace in the future, must strictly keep secrets. A powerful family must have hidden strength in addition to its apparent strength. Perhaps, these hidden strengths can help our Chen family survive disasters in the future." Heard the words. Chen Daoxian and Chen Daolian said in unison, "Remember the teachings of the young patriarch." Chen Xianhe saw this scene and knew that Chen Daoxian had listened to his advice. For the current Chen family, silently developing and accumulating strength is the top priority. The number of cultivators of the Taoist generation is too small, and when the Fuzi generation really grows up, the Chen family can truly be considered the 3rd largest family in Guang'an Prefecture. Otherwise, the 3rd largest family in Guang'an Mansion, supported by Chen Daoxian alone, would not live up to its name. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, 3 years have passed. In the past 3 years, thanks to the Chen family's support and supplementation of the frontline medicinal herbs and instruments in the rear, the East Defense Zone has been victorious in the war against the Lianhua Island Corps Group. Has repressed the opponent back to the main island of the Lotus Archipelago, which is the corpse refining ground that Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai explored. However, the 3rd Order in Meridian has become a 4th Order in Meridian after years of management by Brother Sun Fu. It is densely covered with various formations, and the yin suffocation is permeating. Even if the ordinary cultivator in the qi refining stage takes the Pasha Dan, he cannot resist the attack of this thick yin and suffocation. Therefore, Zhou Mubai had no choice but to blockade the island. The direction of his gap is exactly the direction of Cangzhou Xiancheng. Zhou Mubai's plan is very simple: let the corpses of Lotus Island go to scourge Cangzhou Xiancheng. The two sides have been fighting for so long. Although the corpse group on Lotus Island has been wiped out by millions, the remaining number is probably as many as nearly 10 million. Such a huge group of corpses, plus the fourth-order Yin veins. Even if Guang'an Prefecture can completely wipe out this corpse tide, the monks in the entire Guang'an Prefecture would have to lose hundreds of thousands or more. After all, fighting on the main island of Lotus Island is no better than fighting on various Qingguan islands. There is the home field of the corpse group. If the cultivator goes there to fight, the true energy in the body will be greatly suppressed. One side's strength is damaged, and the other side's strength is increased. This reduction increases, and the strength gap between cultivators and ordinary zombies in the qi refining period will be shortened in an instant, and it will be severely damaged by then. Zhou Mubai was of course unwilling to suffer this kind of loss, even if the loss was not entirely to his Zhou family, but mostly to loose cultivators in Guang'an House. But these scattered repairs are the basic plan of the Guang'an House family, and they are also very important to the Zhou family. Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng. Zhou's residence. A ray of light streaked across the sky. As the light descends, the figure of a person appears. I saw a handsome cultivator wearing a white Taoist robe, a jade crown, and a handsome face walking towards a hall where the Zhou family resided. Inside the main hall, a red-haired cultivator was cultivating. His consciousness moved slightly, and Zhang Yu opened his eyes when he saw the person coming. Immediately got up and walked out of the hall, and greeted the person who came. 3 years have passed. Chen Daoxuan's appearance has not changed at all compared to 3 years ago. The only thing that has changed is his cultivation, which has just broken through from the first floor of the foundation building to the third floor of the foundation building. Saw the change in Chen Daoxuan's cultivation. Zhang Yu raised his fiery red brows slightly and said with a smile, I haven't seen you for a long time, and Dao Yu Chen has made great progress in his cultivation. Senior Zhang is too famous. Chen Daoxian cupped his hands and said straight to the point, I'm here this time for the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. It has already been prepared for fellow Daoist Chen, please come with me. Hearing the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda, Zhang Ye's face became serious. Speaking of which, the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda is the most valuable instrument that the Chen family exchanged for the Chenyuan sword sect with their military exploits. 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda is a 4th-order magic weapon, but due to its special function and expensive price, it can almost be compared to a 5th-order magic tool. In order to buy this magic weapon, the Chen family almost used up all the military exploits accumulated in the past few years. To know. As the production capacity of the Qinjia Spirit Medicine Factory and the Magical Instrument Factory increased step by step, the merits earned by the Chen family on the front line every month are increasing visibly to the naked eye. Over the past 3 years, the Chen family has earned a total of no less than 1 million in the front line. On the merits of war, in the entire Guang'an Prefecture, it is only less than the Zhou family who both fought on the front line and provided various resources in the rear. 1 million great merits, converted into spirit stones, is as many as 100 million spirit stones. Can be imagined how much wealth the Chen family has accumulated in the arms trade in recent years. It is said that making money from war is the fastest way to accumulate wealth. After this war between Guang'an Prefecture and the corpse group on Lotus Island, Chen Daoxian finally felt a little bit. Just a small fight of this scale between Guang'an Prefecture and the Lianhua Island corpse tide, let the Chen family eat belly fat. The war between Wanxinghai and Izumo will be such a vast market for all kinds of medicinal herbs and instruments consumed. Chen Daoxian is simply unimaginable. Of course, although the Chen family is greedy for the profits, at present, they cannot find a way to intervene in it. After all, the Chen family has a shallow foundation and can still be famous in Guang'an Prefecture. But in front of a major sect like Chenyuan Jianzong, it is estimated that others do not even know who the Chen family is in Guang'an Prefecture. In the face of such a vast market, Chen Daoxian can only be envious. Followed behind Zhang Su, and the two entered the hall. I saw a small blue tower in the center of the main hall, quietly sealed in a forbidden place. Chen Daoxian stepped forward in 3 or 2 steps, looked at the small tower suspended in mid-air, and said excitedly, "This is the famous 9 ruins Linglongta used by major families to train their descendants." Exactly. Zhang Su stroked his red beard and smiled, "This is the tower finished." Zhang Su waved his hand, and the restriction on the periphery of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda was lifted by Zhang Su. The blue pagoda lost its restraint and flew directly towards Zhang Su. Took over the Linglong Tower of the 9 ruins, and Zhang Su handed it over to Chen Daoxian. "Chen Daoyu, please take a look," took over the small blue tower from Zhang Su. Chen Daoxian's face was full of curiosity. While looking at the tower body, he said, "This pagoda's use of meson space pattern is really exquisite, and the person who refined this pagoda must be a great master of refining." Chen Daoxian, who has now touched the realm of the third-order refiner, can see the extraordinariness of this tower at a glance. Indeed so. Zhang Su nodded, "Okay, now the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda has also been delivered to Daoyu Chen. The transportation fee you prepaid to me and the accumulated military exploits will all be written off." It should be. Chen Daoxian handed over again and again, "Let Senior Zhang be affected." Zhang Su heard the words, smiled and shook his head. "It's all about the responsibility. In terms of the entire Guang'an prefecture, your Chen family is the second family to own this pagoda. It's not simple." After finished speaking, he looked at Chen Daoxian with eyes full of meaning. It was a fluke. If it wasn't for the battle against the corpse group on Lotus Island this time, it would be my Chen family's turn to make such a big fortune. Chen Daoxian smiled and cupped his hands, his face full of humility. "So, war is the best way for the small family and our loose cultivators to rise." Zhang Su sighed with emotion. "Senior Zhang is very true." Chen Daoxian bowed his hands. "Since that's the case, I won't disturb Senior Zhang Qingxiu, and leave." Slow walk without sending, Zhang Su nodded, watched Chen Daoxian leave, and muttered, "Chen family Chen Daoxian, I don't know whether you can become a member of my generation in the future." Along the way, Chen Daoxian wanted to put this small cyan tower in the storage bag, but found that he didn't put it in at all. Sure enough, the 2 magical instruments that use the meson space pattern will conflict with each other and are not compatible at all. Chen Daoxian smiled and shook his head. If not, then using the storage bag to store the storage bag, wouldn't it be possible to have infinite nesting of dolls and have infinite space, which is obviously impossible. Chen Daoxian was promoted to the 3rd floor of the foundation building. The real essence of Dantian Qi Si has completely reached the limit state real essence described in Chenyuan Sword Classic. In other words, in the foundation establishment stage, no matter how Chen Daoxian cultivated, the strength of his true essence could no longer be improved to any extent. The only thing he can improve is the amount of real essence. Actually, owning the 2nd-grade Fortune Balian, the natal instrument, Chen Daoxian does not lack the amount of real essence. Therefore, for a long time in the future, if he wants to improve his strength, he can only work on the realm of Kendo, secret arts and foreign objects. Needless to say about the realm of Kendo, Chen Daoxian has devoted most of his epiphany opportunities in the past 3 years to the realm of Kendo. Now his Kendo realm has been elevated to a level where the double tangible sword intent is quite profound. The dim starlight in the original Dantian Qi Si has also become extraordinarily bright, like a small star. When this star is completely condensed and formed, Chen Daoxian's Kendo realm will step into the 3rd realm, and the sword will transform into a star. In addition to the realm of Kendo, Chen Daoxian also cultivated a special secret technique to strengthen the defense of the physical body, called the Vajra body, which can also be considered to make up for the weakness of his own defense. Chapter 188. In addition to the realm of Kendo and secret techniques. In addition, the only thing that can greatly improve his strength is all kinds of foreign objects. The foreign objects here mainly refer to various instruments. For example, high-level flying swords, defensive spirit armor, auxiliary magic weapons, etc. A high-grade flying sword, he has a third-grade high-grade flying sword rainbow lightsaber that he received from Yang Linyuan, the ancestor of the Yang family. The defensive spirit armor is slightly insufficient, but he also has a second-order top-grade natal spirit armor that he tailored for him. Of course. The inheritance of the second-order spirit armor of the Qin family is also the exchange of military exploits from the Qinyuan sword sect. This second-order spiritual armor inheritance cost the Qin family a total of 100,000 merits, which is almost worth one-fifth of the price of this 9 ruins Linglong pagoda. Although over the past 3 years, the Qin family has accumulated millions of merits. But to exchange these two things, it took more than 600,000 great works. It can be seen that the more precious the treasure, the more exaggerated the cost. However, this cost is for the Qin family nothing at all. In the war between the East Defense Zone and the Lianhu Island Corps Group, the Qin family earned not only military exploits, but also a large number of spirit stones, because the Qin family's pills and magic weapons have always been settled in half by combat exploits and spirit stones. That is to say, the Qin family has earned a total of over 100 million spirit stones in this military supply trade. The bulk of it is earned from pills. With the profit rate of pills, the pure profit earned by the Qin family is about 70 million spirit stones, which is only the profit from the military supply trade. Besides, there are also the industrial profits of the Qin family in Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng and Lingri Xiancheng, as well as the increasingly prosperous Guanhai Xiancheng. Especially Guanhai Xiancheng. In the past 3 years, due to Qin Daoxuan's low-tax support for merchants and loose cultivators in Guanhai Xiancheng, the Central Bank of Chongqing has also implemented loan support policies for various potential families and loose cultivators. As a result, the commerce and trade of Guanhai Xiancheng has become increasingly active. More and more families came to Guanhai Xiancheng to operate their own industries. As a result, it also attracted a large number of loose cultivators. 3 years ago, according to the rough statistics of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, there were about 300,000 monks gathered in the entire Western Defense Zone. 3 years later, this figure doubled to more than 600,000. Although these more than 600,000 monks are not all gathered in Guanhai Xiancheng. However, the population of resident monks in Guanhai Xiancheng has also exceeded 200,000, which is almost comparable to 1/3 of the Xiancheng of Guang'an Prefecture. The profit generated by this immortal city is the real cornucopia of the Qin family. Of course. Although the Qin family has made a lot of profits in the past 3 years, the expenses are also large. These 3 years, the Qin family did not store the earned spirit stones, but continued to issue spirit stone coins according to the same amount of spirit stones and put them into the market of Guanhai Xiancheng. For example, the construction of Guanhai Xiancheng. At the beginning, due to the shortage of spirit stones, after spending 50 million spirit stones, the completed area of the entire Guanhai Xiancheng only accounted for 1/10 of the total area. Now that there are enough spirit stones, the Qin family will definitely continue to invest in the construction of this fairy city. Qin Daochuan has always kept Qin Daoxuan's orders in mind. A spirit stone, 1 yuan spirit stone coin is issued. Absolutely do not send more than $1 of currency. People in this life may not understand this lesson, but Qin Daoxian, who is familiar with the history of his past life, knows it all too well. The Jiaozi of the Northern Song dynasty and the treasured notes of Daming, without exception, all failed. The fundamental reason for their failure is the ideology of imperial power. To put it simply, the world is mine, and I can do whatever I like, completely disregarding the laws of the market, issuing money indiscriminately, so that the currency depreciates wildly, and no one wants to use it in the end. Money itself has no value, the value of money lies in commodities. Take a simple example. 1 pound of grain is produced, and 1 yuan is printed and distributed, and that 1 yuan can buy 1 pound of grain. If 5 yuan is printed and distributed, only 5 yuan can buy a pound of grain. If you print and distribute 10,000 yuan, then no amount of money will be able to buy food, because everyone is scared by you, creating a market panic, and no one dares to use your currency. Actually, with the productivity of Guanhai Xiancheng, it has been able to carry out a certain degree of additional currency issuance. After all, with the continuous expansion of the Shuanghu Island industrial zone, the Qin family supplies more and more medicinal pills and magic weapons in Guanhai Xiancheng. If the currency is insufficient, deflation will also occur. The same is not good for economic development. It's just that Qin Daoxian was afraid that Qin Daochuan would not be able to grasp the degree of this, so he never dared to let him overissue money. Even a small-scale deflation is better than a large-scale inflation that makes Lingxi coins waste paper. With the cultivation base and the realm of Kendo becoming more and more advanced, Qin Daoxuan's escape speed also nearly doubled. Less than half a day. Qin Daoxian returned to Shuanghu Island. Looking at the newly promoted third-order spiritual vein of the family, Qin Daoxian was full of pride. 10 million spirit stones. Once upon a time, it was an astronomical sum for the Qin family, but for the Qin family now, 10 million spirit stones, but nothing. When he saw that the Zhou family was an allied army of Guang'an Prefecture, they smashed 500 million spirit stones in one go, so scared that he didn't dare to speak at the time. Now it seems that, as a big family in Guang'an Prefecture, it is ridiculous that they can't even get 100 million spirit stones. You must know that if the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda in Qin Daoxuan's hands was put up for auction at the auction house, it would probably be auctioned for a sky-high price of more than 50 million spirit stones. This price is already comparable to the average 5th-order magic weapon. In the entire Guang'an mansion, only the Zhou family is so arrogant and equipped with such expensive instruments for tempering the clan's children. Descend the light of escape. Qin Daoxian found that Uncle 13 and a group of people of the blessed generation were all waiting for him. Bought it back? Qin Xianhe looked at Qin Daoxian excitedly. Qin Daoxian stretched out his palm, and a cyan pagoda was overflowing with light in his palm. Good, good, good. Qin Xianhe was at a loss and wanted to touch this pagoda, but he didn't dare to touch it for fear of breaking it. See. Qin Daoxian personally handed the blue pagoda to his hand, and said with a smile, Uncle 13, touch it quickly, or I won't be able to put it in my hand and play with it later. Hear this. Qin Xianhe immediately took it into his hand and touched it. I have long heard that the Zhou family has a Taishu illusion that tempers the elite disciples of the clan. I didn't expect that today, my Qin family will also have the opportunity to get this kind of treasure. Qin Xianhe was so excited that he didn't know what to say. Just under 20 years. The Qin family has undergone earth-shaking changes. From a family with no spiritual veins, it has become a big family with 2 third-order spiritual veins, 17 second-order spiritual veins, and 21 first-order spiritual veins. From a family with only 2 monks, old and young, it has become a large family with 1 monk in the Xianzi generation, 10 monks in the Taoist generation, and 617 monks in the Blessing generation. Not to mention that the Qin family still controls a fairy city, and even issued its own currency in this fairy city. On this point, neither of the Zhou Yang family did it. Of course, they probably didn't think of it, or felt that doing so would be too much of a hindrance. But no matter what, among the 3 immortal cities in Guang'an Prefecture, only the immortal city of Guanhai uses a unique paper currency such as Lingxi coins. And because the Qin family has good credit, the cultivators in Guanhai Xianqing do not reject the use of such banknotes. Even some loose cultivators and small family cultivators began to take the initiative to deposit their spiritual stones in the Chongping Central Bank in exchange for spiritual stone coins. This is undoubtedly a good phenomenon for the currency issued by the Qin family. These years. Look at the changes in the family. Qin Xianhe has deeply felt that he can't point Qin Daoxian at all. Although he has been the patriarch of the Qin clan for decades, after all, it is only a crumbling small clan with only a few thousand people including the mortal population. How can it be compared with the prosperous scene of the Qin family today? What Qin Xianhe can do now is to teach the children of the blessed generation in the clan to show his last light and heat in the clan. The crowd was excited. Follow behind Qin Daoxian and watch him place the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. Looking at the open space in front of me that was specially vacated for the 9 ruins Linglong Tower, Qin Daoxian flew into the sky with a flash of light. He was dragging the Cyan Pagoda with his left hand, and the mysterious control technique on his right hand kept circulating, as if he was opening some kind of restriction on the Cyan Pagoda. Next moment, the Cyan Pagoda seemed to be activated under the operation of Qin Daoxian. I saw Qin Daoxian throw it on the vacated flat ground. The Cyan Pagoda rose sharply in the wind. From a mini tower less than 6 inches high, it has skyrocketed 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Boom! Under the control of Qin Daoxian, the Cyan 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda slowly landed on the open space. There was a loud, earth-shaking noise. The Qin family standing below were shocked and speechless when they saw the huge pagoda that was more than 100 feet high in front of them. You must know that tall buildings of more than 100 feet, even in their previous lives, were small well-known tall buildings. Moreover, this is not the highest form of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. According to the introduction in Shenyuan Jianzong's exchange of jade slips, the Linglong Pagoda of the 9 ruins can reach a height of 900 zhang. Of course, for the current Qin family, there is absolutely no need to raise it so high. Anyway, it was something that Qin Daoxian manipulated at will. After the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda was placed, Qin Daoxian lowered his escape light, looked at the tall tower in front of him, and said with a smile, "Go, let's go in." Okay. Oh. The disciples of Fuzi life cheered, and they knew that, strictly speaking, this 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda was bought for them. The presence of this group of people from the Fu family is not simple. Counting them carefully, there are 54 people in this batch of Fuzi generation, all of which were carefully selected by Qin Daoxian from the family Fuzi cultivators in recent years. The oldest of them is Qin Fusheng, who is only 9 years old. The youngest is Qin Fuwang, who is only 5 years old this year. But without exception, they are all specially designed by Qin Daoxian, students of the missionary hall. The so-called preaching hall is a school specially established by Qin Daoxian according to the preaching function of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic. There are only 3 courses of alchemy, and kendo for the time being. These 54 disciples of the Blessed Generation are the students of the kendo class selected by Qin Daoxian from the more than 600 Blessed Generation members of the Qin family. It is also a clan that the Qin family cultivated as a core disciple. The conditions for entering the mission hall are quite harsh. Not only do you have to accept the strictest family loyalty education from a young age, but you also have to make an oath before entering that you will never betray your family. Whether it's weapon refining, alchemy, or students in the kendo class, this is the case. The preaching function of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic is too powerful, and Qin Daoxian has to be careful again and again. But with such a powerful function, he could not abandon it. We can only give the double insurance of thought and the oath of the Great Way to the monks of the family who accept the preaching. Chapter 189. Okay, since you are going to class, I won't disturb you. The students of ethnic studies are still waiting for me. Just as everyone was about to go to the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda, Qin Xian has said with a smile. Uncle 13. Go. Qin Xianhe waved his hand. Qin Daoxian bowed his hands and walked slowly towards the interior of the blue pagoda with 54 elites of the family's blessing generation. Qin Xianhe glanced at the people who were drifting away, smiled, used the wind control technique, and flew in the direction of the clan. Walked to the gate of Linglong Pagoda of 9 ruins. As if sensing the master's arrival, the door of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda opened automatically with a rumbling sound. It is said that magical tools above the 4th rank will have an additional direction of spiritual wisdom. This is probably the tool spirit of the blue pagoda. With their heads held high, they took the lead in approaching the Cyan Pagoda, and the elite children of the blessing generation followed behind and filed in. Next second, everyone walked together to an incomparably wide space inside the tower. There are 9 floors in the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda, each of which can be set up with 9 levels of Taishu illusions. These 9 levels of illusions can be set up according to the user's own needs. Generally speaking, big families and sects will choose several kinds of grinding illusions. For example, the illusion that sharpens the disciple's state of mind, the illusion that enhances the disciple's combat experience, and the illusion that enhances the small-scale cooperation of the disciples and large-scale collective battles. The first time Chen Daoxian saw the Zhou family cultivator fight against the Mer people, thousands of the Zhou family cultivators gathered together and released the sword formation, which defeated the beasts controlled by the Mer people in a single encounter. It can be said to be powerful to the extreme. In detail, not every disciple of the Zhou family has a very high cultivation level, and most of them are even cultivators in the late stage of qi refining. But this group of Zhou family cultivators, who were nearly 10 times less than the mercenary tribe, defeated the mercenary tribe 10 times as many as them and the beasts that were more numerous. It's not tough. Compared with those scattered cultivators, the two are not at the same level. Chen Daoxian estimated that even if the number of loose cultivators and Zhou cultivators were the same, their cultivation bases would be equal. If the two sides fought against each other on a large scale, it was estimated that the scattered cultivators would not be able to last a round in the hands of the Zhou family cultivators, and they would be defeated by the Zhou family cultivators, and then it would be considered a one-sided massacre. This is the difference between trained and untrained. True. The first determinant of a cultivator's strength is cultivation, but when everyone's cultivation has not opened a huge gap, other factors are also very important. This includes combat experience and the cooperation between monks. The reason why the coalition forces in the Western Defense Area are weak is not only because the number of coalition forces in the Western Defense Area is the smallest, but also because the coalition forces in the Western Defense Area are completely composed of scattered cultivators. These loose cultivators seldom undergo formal militarization training, and with the loss of Zenangwan, very few of them have even been on the front lines. Let me ask, how much combat power can an army composed of such a group of monks have? Maybe alone, they can make a difference. If it is a large-scale battle, a well-trained army of monks can defeat them in a single encounter. Owner. As soon as he stepped into the first floor of the pagoda, a childlike voice sounded in the empty first floor. Are you the tower spirit of the Linglong Tower of the 9 Ruins? Yes, master. The young child's voice replied again. After pondering for a moment, Chen Daoxian communicated with his consciousness. As far as I know, you should have the ability to set up illusions, but I don't know how to set them up. The 9 Ruins Linglong Pagoda comes with 9 kinds of illusions, and the illusions on each floor are different. If the master wants to add or delete certain things in the environment, he can communicate with me directly. However, the setting of the illusion still needs to consider the issue of authenticity. If the things added by the master are too different from the original content of the illusion, it will cause the illusion to be too illusory and lose its sense of reality. Therefore, the owner needs to think about what to add or subtract. What is the illusion on the first floor? Master, please see. The words just finished. The scene in front of everyone suddenly changed. In Chen Daoxian's sea of knowledge, the golden scriptures shook slightly. He suddenly realized that if he wanted, he could get rid of the illusion in front of him at any time. But other cultivators of the blessing generation did not have this ability. Watching the scene in front of them suddenly changed from the quiet and peaceful environment in the pagoda to the foot of the city gate with a sluggish atmosphere. The older monks of the Fuzi generation were fine, while the younger monks were directly stunned by the sight in front of them. Kill! Before everyone came back to their senses, a scream of killing sounded behind everyone. I saw a group of cultivators from the enemy army of the Izumo kingdom, wearing spirit armor, with a number of about 100, flying towards the crowd. Before anyone arrived, a sword formation composed of 100 flying swords rushed towards the crowd. What? It wasn't just anyone who exclaimed, and immediately fell to the ground in fright. Chen Fusheng was the eldest, but in the face of this hopeless scene, his mouth was dry, and his whole body was trembling unconsciously. 100 cultivators in the late stage of qi refining, wearing first-order high-grade spirit armor, and experienced in battle formations, they knew how to form formations. Such an opponent! Not to mention them, even Chen Daoxian, who was in the qi refining period, had to run away immediately. Although Chen Fusheng was extremely frightened, he patted the storage bag around his waist, and the spirit armor quickly covered his entire body. Nearly 4 years. Under Chen Daoxuan's intensive care, Chen Fusheng's cultivation base has been promoted to the 8th level of qi refining. This speed can be said to be the first of its kind for all the cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture. But thinking of the various resources smashed on him, let alone the big clan in Guang'an Prefecture would not do this, even the Chen Yuan sword sect couldn't be so arrogant and invested so much in a mere qi refining cultivator. Unless this qi refining cultivator is a direct descendant of a high-level Chen Yuan sword sect. It is almost the same for the high level to pay for it out of their own pockets. The more powerful it is, the more formalized and institutionalized it is to train disciples. It is impossible to play like the Qin family. Besides, the foundation building in the early years and the foundation building in the later years did not affect the monks that much. There are many cultivators who invested resources wildly in the early stage, and their cultivation bases improved rapidly. After the foundation was established, it was limited by talent and understanding, and after the slow progress of the cultivation, so that the gap was too large, there were countless examples. Therefore, sometimes it is not a good thing to improve the cultivation base too fast during the qi refining period, but it is easy for the cultivator to lose himself. To a certain extent, the Chen family's training mode for the Kendo class monks in the preaching hall is indeed a kind of encouragement. However, the number of these monks of the blessing generation is not large, and Chen Daoxian is always watching over them to guide their mood. For the time being, there is no such problem. More importantly, with the preaching function, the Kendo realm of these cultivators of the blessing generation, such as Chen Fusheng, has already touched the threshold of sword intent. Now I am comprehending the spell Dao pattern in various spells, and I want to integrate Dao into the sword. Once successful, he will become the Chen family's second qi refining period to realize the existence of sword intent, and he is much younger than Chen Daoxian. Although the other monks of the Fu character generation did not receive preaching for as long as Chen Fusheng did, they almost all practiced one or several first-order sword arts to the perfect state. The strength far exceeds that of the qi refining cultivators of the same rank. In addition, each of them is equipped with the best first-order high-grade flying swords, the spirit armor of life, and the white lotus of good fortune unique to the Chen family. As for foreign objects such as spiritual talismans, they are not lacking. Therefore, in terms of real strength, the oldest of them is no more than 9 years old, and the youngest is no more than 5 years old. Compared with the strength of the 100 enemy monks of the Izumo country in front of him, it is much stronger. But in terms of experience against the enemy, and more importantly, the state of mind against the enemy, they are still far behind. Except for Chen Fusheng, all the monks of the blessing generation present were deterred by the murderous aura of this group of monks from Izumo. Chen Daoxian stared coldly at the scene in front of him. He knew that this was a hurdle that the group of monks of the blessing generation had to go through. This group of people, there will be no accident in the future, all of them will enter the military department of the Chen family in the future, which is the military department of the Chen family as envisaged by Chen Daoxian. It is the military guarantee to guard the Chen family. Their strength may not be the strongest, but they must not be weak, let alone fear the enemy. Otherwise, no matter how high your cultivation base is, no matter how strong your strength is, you will still be a waste, just like Yi Wudao, the ancestor of the Yi family. Kill! Chen Fusheng's tender voice broke the silence. A flying sword glowing with blue light erupted with a sword light up to 9 feet long, and charged towards the enemy. The sword formation of the Izumo cultivator was soon torn apart by Chen Fusheng's flying sword and killed the enemy. However, although Chen Fusheng was strong, the sword formation on the opposite side was made by 100 cultivators after all. As soon as Jianguang tore a gap, it was blocked by the follow-up flying swords. Chen Fusheng's flying sword suddenly fell into a quagmire. With one enemy and 100 cultivators who are proficient in sword formation coordination, even with Chen Fusheng's cultivation level far exceeding the opponent's, it would be a bit tricky. How to fight this? At this time, the other monks of the Blessing generation finally came to their senses. They all took out flying swords and attacked the monks of Izumo. There are more than 50 monks of the Blessing generation, and their kendo level far exceeds that of the monks of the same level. The power of each person's flying sword is at least twice as strong as that of the monks of the same level. With the addition of these 50 flying swords, the sword formation of 100 Izumo monks was torn to shreds in an instant. Next. It's a one-sided slaughter. Less than half a cup of tea before and after. After the last Izumo cultivator was beheaded on the spot by a cultivator of the Fuzi generation, everyone withdrew from the illusion. Ho ho. Ha ha ha, win, win. They are not as strong as they appear in their aura. The power of each flying sword is so weak. Yes, it scared me to death at first. This group of cultivators of the Blessing generation were all overjoyed, but Qin Daoxuan's face was already ashen. Call. He breathed a long sigh of relief and forcibly suppressed the swearing words from his mouth. Think carefully. This is the first time the cultivator of the Lucky generation has participated in the battle. Isn't it normal to have such a behavior? He thought that the first time he participated in the battle was when he cooperated with a group of loose cultivators to kill a first-order blood-spotted sea snake. Wasn't he also excited at that time? Think of this. Qin Daoxuan's mentality gradually calmed down. Young Patriarch, look, this is the spiritual pressure device we invented. Qin Daochu pointed to a black box-shaped magic weapon and said, this is a small spiritual pressure device that we use for experiments. When we build the spiritual line network covering the Shuanghu Island industrial zone, we need to build a giant spiritual pressure device that is at least 100 times larger than this one. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian nodded and said, how did you solve the spiritual pressure problem? Formation. Having said that, Qin Daochu handed over a jade slip and said, it's a bit troublesome to explain, the young patriarch should look at our technical data. Now that Qin Daochu uses the new term of Qin Daoxian, it is very natural. Qin Daoxian took the jade slip in Qin Daochu's hand and sank his consciousness into it. A full cup of tea. Qin Daoxian just withdrew from his consciousness. He probably understood the working principle of this spiritual pressure device. In simple terms, this spiritual pressure device uses the formation method to create a high-intensity spiritual pressure on a section of the spiritual line, forcing the spiritual energy to flow in the spiritual line. The other end of the spiritual pressure device can be connected to the spiritual lake of the third-order spiritual meridian, converting the spiritual liquid in the spiritual lake into aura and instilling it into the spiritual line. In this way, it can drive the operation of the entire spiritual line network. The power source of Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone has also changed from Lingshi to the third-order spiritual vein of the Qin family. Seeing this, Qin Daoxian couldn't help but praise Qin Daochu's fantastic idea. Really? No matter which world people are, there is no lack of innovative spirit. What they lack is often the guidance in the process of growth. Qin Daochu has been influenced by Qin Daoxian since he was a child, and his natural thinking is completely different from people in this world, and is closer to the people of Qin Daoxuan's previous life. Qin Daoxuan's positioning of Qin Daochu is also very clear, a talent researching magical instruments. Because when it comes to Ling Zhen, although Qin Daochu is not bad, he does not have many advantages compared with Tianling and Cultivator. The most important thing is that Qin Daochu's kendo talent and fighting talent are not strong. Not suitable for taking the road of fighting talents. This can be seen from the fact that he has been in contact with the wind-chasing sword art for several years, until he is about to build a foundation, and he has not been able to cultivate this sword art to the realm of mastery. Qin Daochu was not very talented in kendo and spells. On the contrary, Qin Daoxian, who has been scolded by Qin Daoxian for his innate talent for refining, is the most talented among all the cultivators in the Qin family except Qin Daoxian. In less than 10 years, he is now a second-order high-grade artifact refiner. At least 3 years, as many as 5 years, Chen Daochu will have the opportunity to be promoted to the level of the third-order refiner. This kind of refining talent, even if it is placed in the Qianyuan sword sect, is a unique existence. Of course, the premise is that there is the blessing of preaching Chen Daoxian. Otherwise, he can only be regarded as an artifact refining genius at best, and he is far from being the best in the world. Seeing the Reiki network thing finally came to an end. Chen Daoxian was overjoyed and said, "Is there enough spirit stone powder?" "Don't worry, young patriarch, whether it's the spiritual veins cultivated by my Chen family, or the third-order spiritual veins in Guanhai Xiancheng, the spiritual stones that have exhausted the spiritual energy, all of them have been stored by us." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded. "Although there is enough spirit stone powder now, we have to plan ahead." After thinking for a while, "Forget it, I will let Dao Lin take charge of this matter, and let him go to Guanan Mansion Xiancheng and Linghui Xiancheng to buy spirit stones that have exhausted aura, so you don't have to worry about it. Your task now is to replace all the Rongling furnaces and centrifugal wall breakers in the Shuanghu Island industrial zone for my Chen family. In addition to building the aura network, the task is very heavy." After speaking, he glanced at everyone and said, "Can you do it with less than 30 of you? Hear this." Chen Daochu looked bitter, and said, "There are hundreds of magical instruments that can be replaced in the 2 factories. In addition to the installation of the spiritual energy network, I am afraid that there is really not enough manpower." Chen Daoxian nodded understandingly and said, "Well, we'll stay here to help you during this time, and let's do this together." The Reiki network is about the foundation of Chen's industry. Chen Daoxian had to be taken seriously. And there really aren't many suitable people right now. Although there are more than 600 members of the Fuzi generation now, more than 200 are still taking classes in the clan, and 54 full-time Fuzi monks and more than 20 Fuzi monks from the Institute of Magical Instruments are excluded. There are only more than 300 monks of the Blessing generation who participated in the production in the 2 factories. These people support most of the Chen family's economic resources. Chen Daoxian is not easy to move. He had no choice but to roll up his sleeves as the young patriarch and go on it himself. Anyway, he has been used to doing this kind of thing himself over the years. In the beginning, it was only by relying on his hands-on first-line production in the magic tool factory that he accumulated the first original capital of the Qin family, and now the third largest family in Guang'an Prefecture. The next days. The Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone has entered into a fiery reconstruction. This reconstruction may not substantially improve industrial production capacity, but it solves the problem of industrial power. It's like switching from battery power to grid power. It not only further saves costs, but also lays a solid foundation for future industrial expansion. Just when Shuanghu Island was undergoing Reiki network transformation, there was a new change in the corpse refining grounds on Lianhua Island, which was far away 100,000 miles away. In the Fourth Order In a terrifying hall with a strong evil spirit, a young monk suddenly sat up from the cold ground. "Jia Jia, big brother, he's awake." Chapter 191. I heard what my brother Sun Mang said. Sun Fu turned his head, and his dark golden eyes stared at the chi-refining cultivator in front of him, his eyes cold and penetrating. In the eyes of young chi cultivators, the scene in front of me was like hell. The hall that used to be full of immortality in the Zhao family has long since become eerie. Outside the hall, the faint mass of corpses made the hands and feet of this young chi-refining cultivator go weak. "Boy, in order to bring you back alive, I have damaged a corpse servant of the Z mansion. Tell me, how should this account be calculated?" Sun Mang approached the chi-refining cultivator little by little, and a disgusting corpse stench spewed out of his mouth. The young chi-refining cultivator only took a sip before feeling dizzy and wobbly. "It's really fragile." Sun Mang frowned. "Big brother." Sun Fu nodded. "Jia Jia." With Sun Fu's approval, Sun Mang smiled cruelly, his pitch-black fingernails stroked lightly, stirring the air with a chi-chi sound. "What? If you don't speak, are you dumb? As he said that, he put away the corpse poison on his nails, and gently scratched the other's skin, and the black blood seeped out instantly. What? The young Chi cultivator burst out with a whimper, but he remained firm and did not speak. See this scene. Sun Mang grabbed his legs cruelly, and then tore them apart a little bit with force. This feeling is really comfortable, hee. Ah! The young cultivator's miserable howl got smaller and smaller, until at the end, there was no breath at all. Tearing a cultivator in half alive, Sun Mang lifted half of his body and dragged him to another middle-aged cultivator lying on the ground. He said gloomily, "Since you are awake, stop pretending." You. The middle-aged cultivator lying on the ground abruptly sat up, and while pointing at the other side, he kept retreating, trembling all over. "Brother, this is willing to speak, it's really boring." With that said, Sun Mang threw half of the young cultivator who had just killed, directly beside the cultivator who had just woken up. It made him scream. "With this courage, you dare to attack us?" Sun Mang sneered, "The weak will always be the weak, even if they embark on the path of cultivation." In the face of Sun Mang's ridicule, the middle-aged cultivator, who had been so frightened, didn't care at all, just lowered his head and trembled. But seeing the half-body of his companion on the ground, and the pool of blood and internal organs flowing out, his whole body trembled even more. "Ask you a question, as long as you are willing to answer, I will let you go, half an hour." The middle-aged cultivator gathered his courage and said with a trembling voice, How do I know what you said, is it true or false? You can only choose to believe, or die." Sun Mang rubbed his sharp nails as black as ink and said. The middle-aged monk struggled violently in his heart. After a long time, he nodded. "I ask you, where did you Guang'an house cultivators get the logistical medicine pill supply? Haven't the Zhao family already died? Could it be the medicine pill provided to you by other prefectures? Hear this." The middle-aged monk lowered his head, unwilling to answer. "What?" The next second, one of his legs was torn off alive, and he screamed in pain. "Uninterested." Sun Mang shook his head, wanting to kill him directly. But the middle-aged cultivator's strong desire to survive exploded. He collapsed on the ground and shouted loudly, I said, don't kill me. Don't kill me." Sun Mang's outstretched claws stopped. "Speak." "It's the Qin family on Shuanghu Island, and most of the medicinal pills on our front line are provided by the Qin family." "Qin family?" Sun Mang was a little confused, so he had never heard of the name of the Qin family in Guang'an Prefecture before his death. "You are lying to me." I didn't lie to you." "Really, the Qin family is a new big family in Guang'an Prefecture. By the way, their family also gave birth to a young swordsman named Qin Daoxian." Once the psychological defense line of the middle-aged monk was opened, he immediately shook out all the words. "Is it this person?" On the side, Sun Fu brought a bronze-colored round mirror, and inside it appeared a young monk in a white Taoist robe. "Yes, it's him." The middle-aged monk endured the pain. "Brother, it's him." When Sun Mang learned that the Qin family was actually the family of Qin Daoxian who played him last time, the old and new hatreds were added together, and the whole person broke out uncontrollably. "It's the little last time." "Done." A palm waved towards the middle-aged monk. Before the middle-aged monk could beg for mercy, he was photographed into a mass of flesh and blood. Sticking out his scarlet tongue and licking the blood stains on his palm, Sun Mang said slowly, "Brother, what should we do now?" Sun Fu's dark golden eyes shrank, and he said gloomily, "Zhou Mubai is besieging us now, but he has left a gap just so that we can fight with the Yi family. Since that's the case, I will fulfill his wish." "Brother, this." Sun Fu took out an amber jade bottle, which contained a small half-bottle of golden blood, and muttered, "Our immortal blood, not much." "Heard." Sun Mang was completely silent. After a long while, he raised his head and said firmly, "Brother, what do you say, what do I do?" "Brothers." Sun Fu patted Sun Mang on the shoulder and said, "More than a whole month." With the efforts of more than 20 monks of the Blessing generation, as well as Chen Daoxian and Chen Daochu, Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone has a new look. The biggest change is the Lingxian network that spreads across the two large factories. If you look closely, you will find that the other end of the spiritual line network extends all the way to the spiritual lake of the third-order spiritual veins on Shuanghu Island. In Linghu, a superlarge spiritual pressure device is slowly operating, delivering spiritual energy to various industrial equipment in the entire Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone. Standing in the sky, Chen Daoxian looked down at the spiritual line network under his feet, and his heart was full of excitement. With the efforts of him and the Chen family, Shuanghu Island is changing little by little, and the industrial flower of Xiaoxianji is blooming little by little on this small island. Energy is the foundation of industry. The energy Chen Daoxian chose for this industry is the seemingly inexhaustible spiritual energy. After solving the problem of energy and power, the next thing to do is to innovate technology, continue to improve productivity, and expand production capacity, as well as inventing machines for the industrialized production of high-level magical implements and high-level elixir. This requires the Institute of Magical Instruments to innovate and create on the basis of existing instruments. Compared with low-level instruments and medicinal herbs, high-level magic tools and medicinal herbs are much more difficult to refine, and it is far less easy to continue to rely on semi-manual and semi-machined industrial production. Chen Daoxian knew this in his heart. But this problem, he is no longer ready to solve it by himself. After all, he has already planted the seeds of industry, and he has even combined the industrial thinking of the previous life and the knowledge of tool refining in this life into a book dedicated to teaching the disciples of the Chen family. He also ordered Chen Daochu to set up the Institute of Magical Instruments. After doing so much work, if they depended on him for everything, then the Chen family would be too useless. In the past, it could be said that the children of the Chen family were not talented enough, but now they have the blessing of the preaching function of the Hongmeng enlightenment of Taoism. There is no need for Chen Daoxian to bother anymore. At this time, the Chen family has been given wings to take off by Chen Daoxian. As long as it is given enough time, the energy it bursts will definitely shock the world. Young patriarch, it's really spectacular. Yes. Chen Daoxian nodded with a smile, just about to say something. Suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of Sequoia Island. What's up? Chen Daochu wondered. It's nothing, I'm going out, you guys keep busy. Okay. After greeting, Chen Daoxian flew directly towards the fourth-order mountain protection formation. As the movement of the Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone became more and more loud, Chen Daoxian wanted to protect the secrets of the industrial zone on the island. The entire Shuanghu Island has long been shrouded in a fourth-order mountain protection formation and a third-order maze. Seen from the outside, everything on Shuanghu Island is shrouded in a vast white fog, and if you don't enter it, you can't see any reality at all. Out of the big line. Chen Daoxian frowned when he saw Lei Zhen, who was wearing spirit armor and standing with his hands in front of him. General Lei, what happened? Lord, Lei Zhen bowed his hands. The Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces headquarters sent a message asking you to go to a battle meeting. Have a battle meeting? Chen Daoxian frowned. Are there any new changes in the front line of the Eastern Defense Zone? He remembered that the last time he was invited to a battle meeting, it was Zhou Mubai who encountered difficulties on the front line. The medicinal pills were consumed wildly, and the logistics could not keep up, so he had to ask for help from the rear. But over the past 3 years, the coalition forces in the East Defense Zone have been pressing the Lianhua Island Corps Group to fight, and there is no problem of asking for help. In addition, the production capacity of the Chen family's medicinal herbs has been increasing, and the supply of medicinal herbs on the front line has even been saturated. The Chen family had to convert part of their production capacity into the production of qi-gathering pills, a first-order medicinal pill that assisted cultivation. In recent years, in order to support the front line, many monks have delayed their own cultivation. There is a huge demand for medicinal herbs to assist cultivation in the rear. The Chen family's medicinal pills are very popular. Now, as far as the medicinal pill market in Guang'an Prefecture is concerned, the Chen family has completely surpassed the Zhou family and become the first medicinal family. Currently, Chenjiayu Lingdan produced nearly 1 million pills, covering more than 90% of the first-order pill market in the 3 immortal cities. If it weren't for the Chen family's limited ability to produce second-order elixir, it might have completely squeezed the market share of the Zhou family's elixir. For this scene, while the Zhou family felt helpless, there was no good way to do it. After all, the Chen family already has a foundation, and it is no longer a small family. Even if his Zhou family wanted to strike, he couldn't think of a good way for a while. Besides, the policy formulated by the Zhou family before was to befriend the Chen family. If we strike again at this time, wouldn't all the previous investment of the Zhou family be wasted? Chen Daoxian is also very knowledgeable. After occupying the first-order medicinal pill market, the second-order medicinal pill market has not been touched again. He knew that in Guang'an Prefecture, it was best not to push the Zhou family too quickly. Otherwise it's not a good thing. At least before he was promoted to the Z mansion, or before the cultivators of the Fuzi generation grew up, it was inconvenient to force the Zhou family too much. Say it again. Wan Xinghai's medicine pill market is so vast, why should he be confined to one place? The medicine pill market in Sangzhou Xiancheng, the medicine market in the neighboring city, the medicine market in Jingzhou and Taizhou, etc. Thoughts flipping. Half a day has passed. Chen Daoxian looked at the Zhou family station in front of him, and quickly lowered his escape. Just entered the hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in Guang'an Prefecture. Chen Daoxian met a good friend whom he hadn't seen in years. Chapter 192. The main hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in Guang'an Prefecture. What? After listening to Zhou Mubai's narration, everyone was shocked. Yang Linyuan frowned and said, "Didn't the Lianhua Island Corps group be suppressed by the coalition forces in the East Defense Zone? Why did it suddenly break out?" Hearing this, Zhou Mubai said solemnly, "I guessed right before, the Corps group of Lotus Island really has the ability to quickly promote the foundation building zombies to the Zifu." The ability to quickly promote Zifu zombies? Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay. "Brother Zhou," Chen Daoxian bowed his hands, "what do you mean, the corpse of Lotus Island has been fighting against my Guang'an mansion for so long as a fake, but it is actually to delay time and create purple mansion-level zombies?" Probably, Zhou Mubai paused, "It's not necessarily fake to attack my Guang'an mansion, it can only be said that our Guang'an mansion is indeed not their main target, their target has always been Sangzhou Xiancheng. Now the islands along the way from Lianhua Island to Sangzhou Xiancheng are almost completely destroyed within a month, and the corpse tide is approaching Sangzhou Xiancheng. So, doesn't it mean that all the islands in Sangzhou Xiancheng have fallen?" Zhou Mingyan couldn't help but said. "You can say that." Zhou Mubai nodded heavily. "It's too fast." Yang Linyuan and Chen Daoxian frowned upon hearing this. Not long ago, the east defense area of Guang'an Mansion was still fighting against the opponent, but the situation turned sharply in a blink of an eye, and no one could accept it. But why did the other party choose Sangzhou Xiancheng? Zhang Su, the red-haired cultivator who had not spoken, wondered. "It's the population." Chen Daoxian's eyes were deep. "The population of Sangzhou Xiancheng is more than 10 times the total population of my Guang'an Prefecture, and the total is as many as billions. Once such a population is transformed into zombies." Everyone shuddered when they heard the words. Although the strength of a single zombie is not worth mentioning, a monk in the early stage of qi refining can easily strangle with a flying sword. Available in the billions. Besides, there are also levels of evil things like zombies. The strength of the low-level zombies is not comparable to that of the qi refining monks, but the high-level zombies are even comparable to those of the Zifu monks. That is to say, the zombies have fewer means. Fighting alone is not the opponent of the Zifu cultivator, but what about 2 and 3? It is clear. The corpse group of Lotus Island has the means to quickly upgrade the level of zombies. Although everyone can't imagine what kind of treasure it is, it can make a nefarious thing like a zombie quickly advance. It stands to reason that although the promotion of zombies is far easier than that of monks, it is not so easy. In just a few years, a batch of cultivator corpses with at most the foundation building level were refined into Zifu level corpse servants. This is obviously counterintuitive. If the cultivation of sinister things was really that simple, then the world of immortal cultivation would have been in chaos and demons would have been rampant. Actually, the current world of immortality, whether it's monsters, evil spirits, or demons, they're all things that don't enter the mainstream. Needless to say, the monsters naturally have been reduced to a situation of lingering since the ancient times when they failed to compete with the human race for of the heaven and this world. As for the evil spirits and demon cultivators, their biggest enemies are not cultivators, but calamities. Once the evil spirits and demon cultivators reach the golden elixir realm of human cultivators, they will encounter thunder tribulations that are 10 times or even 100 times more terrifying than that of human cultivators. Under the attack of this thunder tribulation, no matter what kind of terrifying evil creature or demon cultivator you are, all will be turned into ashes. There is no chance of a robbery at all. Even if there is a 1 in trillion chance of successfully transcending the calamity, it will face the joint strangulation of the human race cultivators. Human cultivators are very aware of the dangers of high-level evil spirits and demon cultivators. Killing these things is the consensus of almost all ethnic monks. After all, this kind of thing is essentially 2 species that cannot coexist with human monks. The evil spirits and demons require the cultivation of the evil spirit of the meridian, while the monks of the human race need spiritual energy. How can the 2 coexist? Not to mention that many magic cultivators rely on massacres of mortals, collecting mortals' resentment and blood evil spirits to speed up their cultivation and sacrificing magic tools. This perverted path of cultivation is destined to be rejected by all monks. Hear Zhou Mubai's words. For a time, everyone felt extremely heavy. The East Defense Zone blocked Lotus Island, but the opponent actually went straight to Zhangzhou Xiancheng, and all the way was like breaking the enemy. This Yi family is too rubbish. Don't they know how to build a defense line? Zhou Mingyan couldn't help cursing. Obviously, the battle between the Lianhua Island Corpse Group and us was shown to all the monks in Zhangzhou Xiancheng, in order to show the Corpse Group's vulnerable image. Otherwise, Zhangzhou Xiancheng would not be so defenseless. Zhou Mubai said solemnly. Not to mention the Yi family, even the cultivators in their East Defense Zone, after years of fighting, could not help but start to despise the corpses on Lotus Island. After all, they strangled millions of corpses on the opposite side. But what I didn't expect was that these were played by the corpse group for them. This moment, everyone felt extremely troubled. But everyone knows that in any case, Zhangzhou Xiancheng cannot fall. Once Zhangzhou Xiancheng is broken, there will be no line of defense in the entire Zhangzhou Xiancheng that can resist the corpse. At that time, the mortals in the entire Zhangzhou Xiancheng will be transformed into zombies, and then sweep the entire Zhangzhou. Not to mention the mere Guang'an prefecture, the 14 other Zhangzhou prefectures combined would not be able to withstand this disaster. Heard. Yang Linyuan couldn't help but said, "It's all this time, hasn't Shenyuan Jianzong made a move? What are they waiting for? For the sake of a mere genius, all the mortals in Zhangzhou must be sacrificed." Zhou Mingho shook his head solemnly. God Ju is not eliminated, even if this corpse tide is suppressed, it will not make any sense. Zhou Mingho said solemnly, if he can create a Zhangzhou corpse once, he can create a Jingzhou corpse, and even Taizhou corpse. Chen Daoxian was also in a heavy mood at the moment. He knew that Zhou Mingho was right. If the gods do not get rid of the real people, the corpses will never be destroyed. This is the real bane. What's more, Chen Daoxian always felt that there was something behind the Zhangzhou corpse chaos. For some reason, he suddenly thought of the words Xia Hong said before his death, "You all die." What kind of disaster, let him say that you are all going to die. Take 1,000 steps back. Even if Zhangzhou fell collectively, the Zhangzhou clan, would slap their butts and run to other states, and the corpse group could overturn the entire Wangxinghai. Totally overthinking. You must know that so far, only the cultivators of Guang'an House have fought against the corpse group on Lotus Island. Other Zhangzhou prefectures did not participate. If it weren't for the sudden turn of events this time, the monks in other houses would not necessarily know that such a big mess had happened in Zhangzhou. Just like the monks in Guang'an Mansion didn't know what happened in the Jinan Mansion next door. This world is far wider than the previous life. The delivery of the message also lags behind the previous life. It is not a major event that shakes Zhangzhou, and ordinary monks rarely pay attention to foreign affairs. But it's different now. Once Zhangzhou Xianqing is besieged, all the palaces in Zhangzhou will receive this news. If nothing else, someone will soon contact the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture. This person is either a cultivator of the Yi family, or a cultivator of a big family from another house. This combat meeting was not so much a meeting. It is better to say that everyone has reached a consensus again, to help Zhangzhou Xianqing. Although from the bottom of their hearts, everyone didn't want to help Zhangzhou Xianqing, and they wished that the Yi family would die. But I don't want the dead Yi family to turn into zombies and attack them again. Because compared to the Yi family, those corpses are the most terrifying things. They are not afraid, they will not compromise, they will only fight with the monks. This is a war with no way out. Since everyone agrees to help Zhangzhou Xianqing, then we will launch an alliance to unite the entire Zhangzhou cultivator. Zhou Mingho suddenly stood up. Hearing this, everyone nodded, stood up and said, "Subordinates obey." Zhangzhou Xianqing has a population of hundreds of millions and is the largest Xianqing in the entire Zhangzhou. Fortunately, it is also the home of the Yi family. With the strength of the Yi family, this immortal city will not fall easily. Anyway, the Yi family also has Yi Wudao, the Jindan cultivator, and more than a dozen cultivators from the Purple House. There is also a fifth-order formation that guards the entire immortal city. Even though the Yi family couldn't compare to the corpse group in terms of battle strength of the Purple Mansion, they could completely stand guard and wait for the rescue of other provinces. After the meeting, before waiting for Zhou Mingho to contact other provinces, someone kept contacting the Zhou family. As expected by Chen Daoxian, among these people, there are people from the Yi family, as well as people from other great clans in various prefectures. Everyone has only one goal: suppress the Zhangzhou corpse chaos. At this moment, all the monks in the entire Zhangzhou knew that Zhangzhou Xianqing must not be allowed to fall. As for Zhou Mubai's previous thought of revenge against the Yi family, he had also forgotten about it before the safety of the entire Guang'an Mansion and Zhangzhou. Zhangzhou's safety is more important than everything else. All grudges can and must be put aside temporarily. Chen Daoxian is the same. He knows better than anyone the simple truth that An has finished eggs under the nest. Since the Chen family is rooted in Guang'an Prefecture and Zhangzhou, the safety of Zhangzhou is the safety of the Chen family. As for fleeing, not to mention whether Qianyuan Jianzong will be held accountable. Even if Chen Daoxian can escape with his clan, there is no state capital in the entire Wangxinghai that is willing to take in this kind of abandoned soil and escape as a coward. Twin Lakes Island. Chen Daoxian's escape light quickly landed. Back to a peaceful family land. Chen Daoxian walked silently in the direction of the clan. Chongping No. 1 Xiuxian Primary School. Chen Daoxian silently glanced at the blue stone, several bright red stone carvings, and walked into the campus with his legs raised. In the current clan, compared with 3 years ago, the number of people in the Fuzi generation has doubled, reaching more than 200 people. Chen Daoxian knew that there would be more and more people studying clan in the future, especially after the birth of the Zizi generation. The number of cultivators in the Chen family would explode. When he walked to a class that was in class, Chen Daoxian stopped silently. Inside the classroom, Qin Xianhe is standing on the podium, with a red face, giving a class to the immortal seedlings with the character of blessing. Under the podium, the immortal seedlings of the Fu character generation looked active and spoke enthusiastically. Consciousness dissipated. In the industrial area, 8 or 9-year-old children are refining flying swords and refining elixir. Ordinary Qin workers are also constantly busy, adjusting machines and installing elixir. The expressions of these young cultivators were meticulous, and there was absolutely no innocence of children in them. But they, for the sake of the family, have no regrets and no regrets. See this. Qin Daoxian opened his eyes were unprecedentedly firm. This is my family, I want to protect it, no one can hurt it, no one. At this moment, Qin Daoxian's will is extremely firm. Chapter 193. Wait for a long time, after class. Qin Xianhe looked at Qin Daoxian, who was silent, and asked, "Is there something on your mind?" Hearing this, Qin Daoxian smiled and shook his head. "Then come with me." "Okay." Qin Daoxian nodded. Qin Xianhe immediately used the wind control technique, rolled up Qin Daoxian, and flew him in the direction of Qitong Mountain. Along the way, Qin Xianhe did not speak, and Qin Daoxian also remained silent. About half an hour. The red copper mountain is already in sight. Remember, the first time I brought you here? Remember. Looking at the direction of Qin Xian's finger, a cave dwelling stood on the top of the blue mountain. That cave is the cave where Qin Xianhe has lived for decades. Over the years, Qin Xianhe has lived there, silently guarding the Qin family. To this day, Qin Xianhe occasionally comes to this cave to clean up. The two flew very fast. In a blink, it crossed Qin Xian's cave. That's the fire room. I remember when I brought you here for the first time, you were only so tall. Qin Xianhe made a gesture to his waist. At that time, I also passed the family's refining tool to you with the idea of giving it a try. Unexpectedly, your crafting talent is so amazing that you have led the family step by step to where it is today. Qin Xianhe spoke quietly. Qin Daoxian listened silently. That is Copper Mountain. In the end, Qin Xianhe pointed to a bare mountain top, a little sighed. Everything in my Qin family starts from this spiritual mine. Uncle 13. Dao Xian, Qin Xianhe looked at him. I tell you this because I want to tell you that no matter what the future of the family is in the future, I will not blame you, nor will the clansmen blame you. Because, you have already done everything for your family. Dao Xian, you are worthy of any clan. Qin Xianhe patted Qin Daoxian on the shoulder and said seriously. Qin Daoxian smiled and nodded. Qin Xianhe didn't ask Qin Daoxian's thoughts, and Qin Daoxian didn't say anything. Limited by the cultivation base, many things are said, except to add guilt and trouble to Qin Xianhe too, without any use. In fact, Qin Xian's remarks have given Qin Daoxian great encouragement. At the very least, at Qin Xianhe, he knew the attitude of the clansmen towards him, the young patriarch, and the clansmen's support for him. That's enough. No one is stupid and no one is blind. The contribution Qin Daoxian has made to the Qin family is less than 1% of the patriarchs of all dynasties combined. This is obvious to all the Qin clan. After sending Qin Xianhe back to the clan school, Qin Daoxian found Qin Fusheng. Seeing this half-year-old boy who was less than 10 years old and had just reached his chest, Qin Daoxian's face showed a look of surprise. Fusheng, you. Young patriarch, I succeeded. Qin Fusheng smiled. Sword intent. Qin Fusheng understood the sword intent. Not only that, but he also entered the realm of the 9th level of qi refining. This completely broke the record set by Qin Daoxian. He became the youngest cultivator ever to realize the sword intent. Perhaps it is easy to use resources to smash a 9th level qi refining cultivator who is less than 10 years old, but no matter how much resources are used, it is impossible to smash a monster who understands the sword intent at the age of 9. Seeing him, Chen Daoxian seemed to see another top powerhouse rising up in the Chen family. Fusheng, great. Chen Daoxian patted Chen Fusheng's shoulder heavily. Chen Fusheng was very excited to receive such affirmation from Chen Daoxian. Excited, Chen Daoxian handed over a flying sword. This is a third-order high-grade earth attribute flying sword that I refined for you. It was originally intended to be given to you as a gift after you build your foundation. Now, I will give it to you in advance. With that said, Chen Daoxian handed over the flying sword worth millions of spirit stones. This flying sword is the proud work of Chen Daoxian after he was promoted to the third-order refiner. It is also the best flying sword he has refined so far. It is higher than the rank of his 2 third-rank middle-rank natal flying swords. Taking the flying sword handed over by Chen Daoxian, Chen Fusheng was even more excited, but then hesitantly said, however, the rank of this flying sword is too high, so I can't use it. Of course you can't use it now, but you'll be able to use it almost after you have successfully established the foundation. Having said that, Chen Daoxian told him the terrifying increase after comprehending the sword intent foundation during the qi refining period. This explosive strength improvement was Chen Daoxian's personal experience. Perhaps Chen Fusheng will not be as terrifying as Chen Daoxian's promotion in spiritual consciousness, but in swordsmanship, he will definitely have a qualitative leap like Chen Daoxian did back then. If he is lucky enough, maybe Chen Fusheng will be able to touch the second tangible realm of sword intent as soon as he builds the foundation as he did back then. Until then, Chen Fusheng's strength is not comparable to that of the cultivator of the Purple Mansion, but he is definitely an invincible existence under the Purple Mansion. The Chen family finally had a second pillar besides Chen Daoxian. Although, the age of this pillar is a bit young. Fusheng. From today, you have to protect the Chen family, especially when I'm not in the family. Don't worry, young patriarch. Chen Fusheng nodded heavily. 10 days later. The fairy city of Guang'an Prefecture. Spirit boats gathered from all over Cangzhou towards Guang'an Mansion. Chen Daoxian led the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, with a total of 500 Foundation establishment cultivators and 5 Spirit Void battleships, rushing over. The outer city of Guang'an, the city where the Zhou family lived. Countless Zhou clan members raised their heads and looked at the scene in front of them that they had never seen in their entire lives. Daddy, there are so many big ships. I'm going to tell my mother. All the Zhou clan members trembled when they saw the immortal boat above their heads. If it wasn't for the immortal master to greet him in time, it is estimated that these mortals of the Zhou clan would all be on their knees and kowtow. For mortals, the monks are the existence they can't reach. This is also one of the reasons why the Zhou family has banned air formations in Guang'an to avoid disturbing mortals. Think about it. If the air formation is not banned, hundreds of thousands of cultivators will fly around the heads of mortals every day. What will be the impact? If mortals are used to it, it will also cause the monks' deterrence to mortals to decrease. Simply, the Zhou family came up with a no-air formation, everyone would save trouble. On the deck of the Spirit Void battleship, Chen Daoxian stood in the middle, with Lei Zhen and Zhou Muqing standing beside him. Zhou Mubai. I was looking around at the spirit boats from Beppu, and a voice resounded through the sky. Who is this man? Do not know. It's the fire spirit Taoist of Shuan House. Is it him? Daoist Hualing who single-handedly destroyed hundreds of foundation building cultivators in Yunmeng Pass? Yes, it's him. Moreover, he was only in the late stage of foundation building at that time, and he never imagined that he is now on the 3rd floor of the Purple Mansion. Lei Zhen looked envious. In terms of Ling Zhen, he is the same as Daoist Hualing, both of them are cultivators of Tianlingen. It stands to reason that Lei Zhen was also a foundation building cultivation base back then, and the gap between the two is not so big. But Daoist Hualing was a family cultivator, with the full support of the family behind him, but Lei Zhen was a loose cultivator, and he was the kind of loose cultivator who had not become a guest of a big family. In addition, he did not continue to hang out on the battlefield of Izumo. Naturally, in terms of resources, he couldn't compare with the core children of a big family such as Daoist Hualing, and the difference between the two was the worse. Heard. Chen Daoxian looked over curiously. Is there anything special about this fire spirit Taoist? How dare you call Brother Zhou's name in the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture? It's you kid, why, itchy skin again. The next moment, another voice sounded in the sky, and a white figure stood proudly in the sky. Not Zhou Mubai, who was it? Daoist Hualing looked young in his early 20s, with a fair complexion and a red mark like a fire pattern on his forehead. He was dressed in a loose red Taoist robe, and his long hair was casually tied behind his head, giving him a bohemian look. Hey hey. Hearing Zhou Mubai's words, Taoist Hualing laughed. Afterwards, the two embraced each other in public, then smashed each other's chest hard, and smiled at each other. This scene not only surprised others, but also shattered Chen Daoxuan's 3 views. In his eyes, Zhou Mubai should be a very serious and steady person, but he didn't expect to make such a frivolous action in public. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.